Cooper, Lynn, we're going to resume. So do I have a motion to come out executive session?
I'll make a motion to come out executive.
Motion second, all in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passed. And again, I want to apologize to everyone. We were interviewing actually a number of very excellent candidates for some of the open board, planning board, zoning board, positions. So very important to the town to get good qualified people on there. So that was what the delay was. So we'll start right away with an important, I think, community affairs presentation. As you know, I've been sponsoring, the board has been sponsoring, and I have a series program where we have various folks coming in to speak to us. Today, I've invited the sheriff's department here, and unfortunately the sheriff was not able to be here, and but ably represented by 3 of his team. And we welcome you up to present. The reason for this is, as you know, we do not have our own municipal police department. We rely on the services of the sheriff's department, able services, so we have them presenting on kind of the state of the town and what they're doing in the community and where we're going from here. So come on up, and when you come up, identify yourselves, and then so the community, because we're on TV.
Great. I appreciate that, Supervisor. Thank you for the opportunity for having us here. My name is Jason Mark. I'm the Chief Deputy with the Dutchess County Sheriff's Office. With me is Captain John Watterson. He oversees the road patrol. And Sergeant Neil Stewart. He oversees he's the liaison, as you know, with the town of Wappinger Patrol, as well as one of our senior sergeants on the midnight shift. And as you said, Sheriff Imperati could not be here. He had a previous commitment. He regrets that. He welcomes the opportunity to come back if that's what you'd like, to answer any questions or to clarify anything, but certainly would look forward to that. And so what we'd like to do is Sergeant Stewart will present a little bit. Any questions you might have, we're ready, willing, and able to answer. If we don't have an answer for you, we'll get that for you and get back. So.
Yeah, so when they're done presenting, we'll have a Q&A period. Sure. And I know there'll be some questions for you. So,
great. Thanks very much.
Okay, good.
Sergeant Stewart.
Stewart. So again, as Deputy Sheriff mentioned, Sergeant Stewart, how many years? 3 now that you've been working with us, or 4?
More than 4.
4, yeah. Right? So has been our chief liaison and attends to all the questions and concern, some of the challenges that are ongoing. So go ahead, introduce you.
My name's, once again, Sergeant Neil Stewart. I'm a sergeant at the Dutchess County Sheriff's Office, and I supervise the Wappinger Patrol. The Wappinger Patrol has been going since long before I've worked at the Sheriff's Office, and it's a supplemental patrol that's in addition to the zone car that we provide and the state police cars that they provide. What we mainly deal with is patrolling the town properties, doing property checks, and dealing with ongoing complaints that people have. The good part about the patrol is, since you don't have a dedicated police permit, this gives you an avenue of addressing issues in the town that sometimes our zone car or the state police couldn't handle just because of call volume and other coverage. The Sheriff's Office handles approximately 3,500 to 4,000 calls a year in the town of Wappinger. That's just our department alone. And we're out there doing, answering all sorts of calls, and we're also doing a lot of traffic enforcement. Part of the Wappinger Patrol is a targeted traffic patrol, which is separate line item on your budget that we go out and address the problems that are coming in. And I keep an up-to-date list, and on the top of the list goes the newest complaints, and it just keeps rolling down. So when our members work these patrols and they're in their targeted patrol, they can pull this up on a shared drive, look at the ongoing problems, and go out and immediately address them. During those patrols, we do a lot of traffic enforcement, dealing with speeding vehicles, ATVs, and similar complaints like that. And your typical year, the sheriff's office is writing about 1,500 to 2,000 tickets. We're doing 3 times that many traffic stops. A lot of people are getting warnings for violations that aren't egregious, to remind people to slow down in neighborhoods and so on and so forth. We're actually seeing an increase right now of traffic complaints, and along those lines, we're seeing an increase in the issuance of traffic tickets. I believe that to address some of the ongoing complaints, the targeted traffic patrols may be increased a little bit, and that would probably be very beneficial to the town right now.
So what are the hours that and the shifts that you have with respect to the town patrols that are in the cars that we have purchased and have provided for your use?
So the town right now, the town patrol, which is the Vandalism Patrol that does all the property checks and answers calls and stuff, that's always on at least 4 hours up to 12 hours a day, depends on the day and it varies. It's an average of 56 hours a week, and the targeted traffic patrol is normally, if I put one out every week, it would be about 4 hours a week, so it's 1 patrol a week, which I think that if we increase that, it would benefit all the complaints that are coming in.
Yeah, I think, in what we're seeing, and each of the councilmen and women can talk to in their areas, but it's a combination of one, we have a lot of newer families that have moved in, the first growth in some time, and a lot of young families. I know even in my neighborhood, there's a lot more speeding that's going on, so that's the concern of the kids also, and I know we'll have one question, but I'd like you to address also the jurisdiction issues, because we have a number of state and county roads here in the town, and and there are a lot of complaints, and some important ones, and some that are ongoing, that about speeding, right, and dangerous situations. So how do you work with the state police, and how do you handle something that might be on a town road, a state road, for example? County roads you cover, right?
Well, our jurisdiction is the town
everything.
of Wappinger, so
Okay.
we patrol town, state, and county roads, and we can enforce traffic laws on all of them, and we are, to the best of our ability. Our patrol area is very large here, so trying to target the problem areas is what we would like to do.
What would be your recommendation, because we had discussed this and discussed it with the board of, in light of the population growth, some of the business growth of as to increased patrols for the board to consider?
I think a really good time to increase patrols would be now in the springtime. A lot of the traffic, ATV complaints, increase now. People are out walking, running, outside of their houses. So the number of complaints we get currently go through the roof right through now till the fall. My personal opinion, that targeted patrol, 4 hours a week just isn't enough. Obviously, it costs money, so that would be something the town board would have to approve. But if you were looking for a way to decrease these complaints, that line item of targeted patrol would be the one that should be increased.
How many more hours would you recommend that we get? Because I think we can certainly, I think we've all kind of talked about this before, about adding some additional patrol, something I think that's needed in the town. I know you've certainly been a significant asset for me. Got to know you on a first name basis, not as a good point, but you've been very helpful in getting out there and serving my residents, so I do appreciate that. But what would be your recommendation as to how much more you think we would need? Because we don't see all the calls that you get. I know you said 3,500 to 4,000 calls that you get, but any idea how many more you could potentially service, or et cetera, if we added, say, another full-time person, et cetera? I don't know if you had a chance to do that analysis or not.
When I took over the patrol, there was a significant amount of that targeted patrol money. It was used for part of the year, and then there was a lapse. So when I took over, I figured out how to use that between when I took over and the budget ending. It turned out to be about 3 times a week that we had a targeted patrol out. And I have to tell you, we would go out and deal with the complaints and send people to where the complaint areas were. And I would get phone calls back from people saying, thank you very much, it's working. And then we would concentrate on an area, and when new complaints would come in, we'd not abandon that one, but shift more towards the new complaint and try to revisit the old one. And the benefit was that we weren't getting complaints on the older complaints for like 3, 4, 5, 6 months, and then it would start back.
Start up again, exactly.
Once we trailed off. So there was a lasting effect. And I don't see that lasting effect with one patrol a week. It's a high visibility patrol that reminds people, oh, there's police here a lot, I'm not going to do X, Y, or Z. So increasing that, if we would increase it, 2 or 3 patrols a week and target those problem areas, I think that would benefit a lot.
I just want to thank you for your service, all of you. The Sheriff's Office does an outstanding job.
Thank you.
I do have constituents in the 2nd Ward, along with my colleagues, where the residents are very concerned with speeding, with the volume of traffic, and with the summer coming, especially in Chelsea Road, people going down to the river for the boat launches. And it's increased a lot. And I have residents every day complaining to me that we need more coverage. Okay.
All right, that's definitely the ringtone award.
Yeah, exactly.
Who's got it? Who's got
It definitely is.
All right.
It's okay. It's
You got to
got
identify
everybody's
yourself when you
attention.
have that one.
Without a doubt. Yeah, you did
All right.
very well.
Sorry, Councilwoman, go ahead.
That's
go ahead.
fine.
That wasn't the BS
But on that
meter, was it?
account, we do need more coverage,
We do.
without a doubt. And we need reports. Yeah, I know you used to send reports. Do you send reports
I do.
to anybody?
Yes.
Do you, because I haven't received one. Who does it go to?
It goes to me, I guess, or to
Well,
Frederick.
you used to be sending it to the town board members. Can we start that back up, please?
Sure.
I don't know why it stopped,
Yeah,
so.
when I was doing the targeted patrols, the 3 a week
Mm-hmm.
or 4 a week, I was sending a report for that. The town patrols go on paper and they get sent in, so I'd never sent them out. But the traffic report, I can start.
You
start
can
back-
send anything you want. You can send all 3 reports because it's easy to delete them.
Sure.
So please send them to the board members.
Yep, that's not a problem whatsoever.
Thank you.
And, back when we had that extra money and there was a lot of complaints in the Chelsea area, we went down there a lot, and I know that, I think it was 3 years back, it dramatically decreased the complaints. And that's what I feel is needed again.
Right.
To go back to that and to be able to hit.
It's the
these
same
areas.
thing on Osborne Hill Road, unfortunately. I have a resident, a senior,
Yep.
and they're very nervous with getting their mail because they walk out to get their mail in.
And each ward has its list, and he has
Exactly.
a list, and there's
No,
some growing list, that we have. Plus,
But
as,
this needs to be addressed.
maybe stealing Councilman Beal's, thunder, but as we've seen on certain major roads, 9D, 9, Old Hopewell, New Hamburg, significant increase of traffic, flows, which is also causing, speeding concerns and, cars getting nearly
Exactly.
hit and so forth. So I think that's where we want to focus. And then on some of the smaller, roads or the interior roads in the wards, like I said on mine, increase the speeding. With a lot of young kids out there now, we're
Well,
really
right.
concerned.
School is going to be getting out.
So I think if we do that, and if you can give us some numbers, Sergeant Stewart, then we can address that,
That would be-
fairly quickly. And, you would have no problem as far as increasing the resources for the town,
That would be
Okay.
fantastic. I think the residents would be very happy with that.
But we still have, the traditional issues, and I think we may have 1 or 2, comments tonight too with respect to speeding and concerns, and, we continue, I think each of us continues to
Right,
report
yeah.
in to you, and you have been, responsive from those point of view.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime you guys get
Yeah.
complaints that we need to address, just send them to me. I compile a list ongoing, and it consistently goes out to the members working the patrols.
And there are other services that, right, you may not necessarily deal with, but the rest do, like, protection of our waterways, right? We have a significant amount of coverage on the Hudson River, on the lower creek, as far as Wappinger Creek, and you do have patrols and services, and occasionally some issues come up. And I think that we hope will increase, because actually I'm talking with one of our residents, and we're exploring ways to increase the park coverage along the creek and the river, and we're working with the county to do that. So we're anticipating some real positive developments there. And so it's those sort of services that people don't realize that you provide. And maybe just talk a little bit about what else the county does. And I think whether it's Sergeant Stewart or one of you guys can talk also maybe a little bit about the mental health services and how you reach out to the communities as part of some of the issues that we're facing in our town.
And again, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
And I'm sure I don't want to preempt the other board members'
No,
questions.
I think the chief should give us just a global outlook.
Yeah.
I mean, the sheriff's office provides a significant number of services that are not necessarily visible to the general public, which in some respects is a good thing. But this law enforcement agency is the premier agency, not only in Dutchess County, but in the Hudson Valley. And I'm biased because I work as the county emergency manager, and I deal with the sheriff's office every single day. The number of services that they provide and allow this town access to provides great value, and the chief can expand upon that a little bit, and then I'll comment after the presentation is done.
Thanks.
Sure, I certainly appreciate that and the comments, and we work extremely well together, our agencies. And that was one of the things that Sheriff Anderson, God rest his soul, was very important to him. His mantra of treat people the way you want to be treated was ingrained in all of us, for all those years. Sheriff Imparati, upon the sheriff's passing last September, took that responsibility as acting sheriff and went forward. His mantra has always been, get better every day. Be better today than you were yesterday, be better tomorrow than you are today. To the point where we incorporated those two into our mission statement when we redid our police reform and modernization plan a year and a half ago. It was important to start that as a base, as a place where we start, and we did that. So I'm very fortunate. I've been with the Sheriff's Office for 31 years. It's all I've known. I have that expectation of all the other agencies I deal with. Sometimes they live up to that, sometimes they don't. But coming from this is the only thing I've known, it's a unique experience, and the amount of care that went in from Sheriff Anderson, now Sheriff Imparati, to say, get out of the cars, know your community. It's important to know the individuals, to establish that trust with them before you need to. So when there's an emergency and everything's going haywire, it's great that I can, or Lieutenant Castano or Captain Watterson, Sergeant Stewart can reach out to Bill Beal and say, hey, listen, we've got this going on, and everything that comes to the table with that. But the Sheriff's Office is a full-service organization. We have, and it's true, a lot of times I assume people know what we have to offer, and that isn't always the case. Within the law enforcement division, there's law enforcement division, corrections division. So just within the law enforcement division, we have our patrol bureau, detective bureau, a special operations bureau, which is intelligence gathering, a training bureau, civil bureau, the pistol permit bureau, records, and emergency management logistics. Within those bureaus, our specialized units include, and it's what the supervisor was alluding to, we have our ATV unit. We're going to start that up. The full-time unit will be starting when the SROs come out of the schools end of June, which patrols all the county interests, the rail trails. When there's problem issues, we will deploy our ATV unit to that. We have 8 ATVs and 2 UTVs. We had in the wintertime, we put tracks on those, on 2 of those, on 4 ATVs and on 2 of the Rangers. We have our bicycle patrol, which again is during this time it's being activated now for community events, for the rail trail, for other things like that. We have our marine unit. We have 2 boats. One boat comes out of White's Marina. One boat comes out of Hyde Park Marina. We have 2 Zodiacs on trailers. We also have another Boston Whaler on a trailer that can be deployed to the lakes and the smaller waterways. We have members now There are swiftwater rescue training in Oriskany. We're working with the fire departments, with emergency response to be prepared. It seems in the past few years, those incidents have increased, where we've had flooding, we've had areas where we've had to go in with those Zodiac-type boats to render assistance. And again, knowing the players, trusting, knowing the abilities before you need to is crucially important with the assets. Sheriff Anderson, now Sheriff Imparati, always big about collaboration, cooperation, not only with all the local law enforcement agencies, but with the fire departments and community groups. Sheriff Imparati's a piece which was important for our police reform modernization plan is the triad approach, which is law enforcement with government and the community all working together. You take one of those pieces out of that equation and things take a left turn. So it's important that we're all working together for the common piece of that. Our K9 unit, our unmanned aerial system or drone unit, we have 6 licensed FAA licensed pilots who respond not only for our law enforcement needs or other departments' law enforcement needs, but firematics. We assisted out in the Mena when there was a couple people were trapped in the water. Our abilities to go out under all kinds of weather are increasing with different drones that we're getting. There's all-weather drones with infrared, for missing persons. So it's not just for a law enforcement application, but it's across the board, and we are here for any agency that requests that. So we have our drone unit, our crime scene unit, ESU, that's our emergency services or SWAT unit, our crash investigation, our motorcycle unit, our drug task force, which is a district attorney's task force. However, we have our coordinator, Detective Sergeant Harris is a coordinator for the drug task force. We have members assigned to it, as do the agencies, the city of Poughkeepsie, the town of Poughkeepsie, Beacon, East Fishkill, and Hyde Park also put members on the drug task force with the opioid crisis and fentanyl. We have our field intelligence unit, which is intelligence gathering. We are utilizing them a lot with their field intelligence group. Again, a lot of local agencies send people to the group, and it's a sharing of information, which is paramount with that. Our Joint Terrorism Task Force, we have members assigned to that. Actually, Sergeant Begor, who used to be the liaison for the town of Wappinger, has been assigned to the JTTF for a number of years now. And our School Resource Officer Program, which is crucial in forming those connections and bonds with the youth and opening that up so there's communication there for that. And I know that we're going forward with Ketchum, and we're looking into a secondary place there for our office with that. And it's important with our office with accreditation. When the police reform modernization plan came around, we've been an accredited agency since 1997, continuously accredited. And what that means is we have to meet a certain standard. Every year we go through a compliance check. And then every 5 years, which is up next year, so we'll be very busy moving into that, is they have a site visit for 3 days. Division of Criminal Justice Services come down and review our policies and programs and make sure we're doing what we're saying we're doing, what we're supposed to do. But because of that, we were ahead of the curve when it came to the reform plan and the different things we had in place. In 2017, Sheriff Anderson put in place, under Sheriff Imparati's direction, our Internal Affairs Bureau. We're the only one in the county with a local Internal Affairs Bureau for accountability. We have it on our Dutchess County website, dutchessny.gov. It has all the forms if you want to make a compliment, which is always nice too. Or if you have an issue you want to bring up, you can do that with confidentiality and with the assurance that it's going to be looked into. And whether it's an email or whether it's a phone contact with someone specific, we have that. We have the forms online as well. So there's a lot, and I think when we started going through the police reform and modernization plan and we presented it to the county legislature during that process, I think that's when it dawned on me for the first time that not everyone is aware of the things we do and the things we have in place because of all the different initiatives, whether it's domestic violence, and we're looking at now in dedicating a detective to a domestic violence unit at the sheriff's office where other people would fold it into that, to the different initiatives that Sheriff Imparati has put in place. And training has always been a big thing for us. We've had in our training back in 2017, the Training Bureau, and I think it was close to Sheriff Anderson's heart as well as Sheriff Imparati's. Sheriff Imparati was a training director for many years. Sheriff Anderson was a defensive tactics instructor. But through that time in 2017, we put into the curriculum of the academy crisis intervention training and implicit bias training. Those were not included, or rather procedural justice in 17. And in 2020, we put in place the implicit bias training. The importance of the mental health issue As you know, most of the call, not a majority, most of the calls we go on has some component of mental health, right? I mean, these have been tough times for everybody. That comes out in different ways. And I think the crisis intervention training is so important because it gives the tools the officers need in their tool bag to deal with certain things, to open up different avenues and understand what's available to folks when they're in crisis. A lot of times, our uniform is a roadblock when we come into a door, and people see it as such. And the things you learn in that training is crucial in terms of being able to go forward with assisting people. Our working relationships with the Mobile Crisis Team, Crisis Stabilization Center, behavioral and community health, and community family services also, as I said before, important to have those relationships prior to needing those relationships. In reference to our implicit bias and procedural justice training that we have everybody go through, and again, it was implemented in 2020 and 2017. The implicit bias training exposes officers to their unconscious biases and provides tools to adjust their patterns of thinking and ultimately eliminate that behavior is the point of that. Procedural justice kind of goes back to the sheriff's mantra, right, of treat people the way you want to be treated. There's 4 key principles to procedural justice training. Treat people with dignity and respect, give individuals a voice during their encounter, and be neutral when making decisions and conveying trust. So it's just about establishing that rapport and that trust. But those are the important things with training and training our officers and training officers throughout the county at our facility in Poughkeepsie, the Dutchess County Sheriff's Office Law Enforcement Center, to make sure everybody is on board with that. We get a lot of help. We get a lot of instructors from local PDs. Our recruitment initiative that we just graduated a class March 11, we're gearing up for another academy starting July 5th. And again, that's with the Sheriff's Office, as well as the town of Poughkeepsie, City of Poughkeepsie, Hyde Park, East Fishkill. I believe Beacon has a number of people in that. The importance of that is, again, to establish that rapport and establish that incredible of training that they get at the Dutchess County Law Enforcement Academy, and it's an amazing thing to go in there and see those recruits from day one and how they progress to graduation day, and it's an honor to be a part of that. And I know that the men and women at the Sheriff's Office feel that same way too, and with the training that goes forward with it.
Thank you.
But the importance of this last initiative was that we had an incredible drive, we had an incredible recruiting team. Lieutenant Castano was involved in that, Captain Watterson, and it was something under the direction of Sheriff Imparati. It was important to get out there in the community. It went up from 800, I think in 2017 was the last test, and I think it was like 800 people had applied. This time around it was closer to 1,500 people. Increase in all the demographics for that. And we ended up hiring. We're very fortunate at the Sheriff's Office because as we have a part-time squad, which means we don't have to take them off a civil service test. It can give them an opportunity to take the test once they're in, and then go forward from there. So we hired 7 part-time deputies and 2 full-time in this last class. This next class that's coming up, we're going through the background process, which is an enhanced process. Again, we had that in place. Now it's state law. In October of 21, they did a professional police law that came out that had all these different standards about polygraph and the interview process, and we had that in place. So again, we were ahead of the curve.
That's great.
I love the office. I boast about it a little bit, but it's a proud and it's a great place. It's a great place to be. And appreciate the opportunity here to do that.
And for people that may not know, also, you do have a substation in the town located at the airport that
Absolutely.
can get
And
response
absolutely.
immediately, right?
Yeah, and we do. We have cars turning out of the substation at the airport. And it's important to have that for this zone, which is zone 4, as well as the other zones. We have a number of cars there that turn out of there. We have a report writing station there, so they can go back and they can process people there. We have a live scan fingerprint there. Dutchess County DPW is just upgrading that now. There were some issues with some doors and some of the inside of it, but it's going to be a very pretty place.
So, thank you, Chief. Just from my perspective, I've been here for 15 years, and I have to give a shout out to my father-in-law, Sergeant Gary Corbett, retired, who was also one of the liaisons back in the day, because he's probably watching this. But that said, this is the definition of a true shared service. This town has been doing this for many years. We are the largest town in Dutchess County that doesn't have a municipal police department. The reason why is because we've had this partnership. And this allows us, in my opinion, the ability to save taxpayer dollars while providing the highest level of protection within our town. If you look at our numbers in the town of Wappinger, we've been fortunate to have very low crime in this town, and I believe that's because of the partnership this town has, primarily with the sheriff's office, but also with our tenant, the state police, who pay us to be in this town. It works out to be a real good arrangement. The town of Wappinger has steadily increased the subsidy to the sheriff's office since I've been here. We continue to increase the funding. The line in the budget that the sergeant referred to for targeted traffic enforcement was added 4 or 5 years ago, specifically so that we can show an initiative of the town that we want to provide targeted traffic enforcement, also handicap enforcement, parking spaces, fire lanes, things like that, the things that people call us and complain about at times. So I certainly think this board, as we approach budget time again, can take a look at that line and perhaps evaluate, based on the input from the sergeant, how we can maximize that line and provide additional patrols within that line. Right now and overall, we have about $257,000 that is budgeted for town patrol. $257,000 sounds like a lot of money, but towns that are comparable to us in size are paying between $5 and $10 million for a police department. The value that we see with this partnership with the sheriff's office provides us not only the patrol units that we have here in this town, but all the services the chief just mentioned, which are resources to our patrols when they are working, and they're also resources to this town when we don't have patrols on, because the zone car remains a resource to this town. I firmly believe that this arrangement we have is a model arrangement that other municipalities should be looking at, and evaluating the number of hours that we have personnel on the street in our town is a smart approach, rather than just arbitrarily selecting a dollar amount. We actually look at how much it will cost to put patrols on our streets, and many of our residents throughout COVID have had high levels of anxiety because they've been in environments that they haven't traditionally been in, whether it's working from home, whether it's having the kids all the time. You know, it's good to know that we have this resource in our town, and the sheriff's office stepped up during that time period. And it wasn't easy for the sheriff's office to step up. Having staffing challenges throughout COVID, because I know personally that we had COVID vaccination sites that had to be staffed. We had a number of COVID operations that required additional staffing from the sheriff's office, and they were still able to patrol this town and give us staffing that was needed. That's not easy to do, and they prioritized the town of Wappinger and continue to do that. So I greatly appreciate that. That said, the community policing approach that the chief spoke of, getting to know the people that live in the town, I think that's important. I think there's been an effort to make sure that folks that are comfortable and maybe reside in the town and work in the town on a regular basis are familiar faces to our residents. I think that speaks volumes, and that's additional value that we see here in this town. So for the 4,000 plus calls that you handle in our town, I say thank you. We greatly appreciate your responsiveness. I mean, Sergeant Stewart really just touches the tip of the iceberg when he says he gets right back to us. You can text Sergeant Stewart when he's on vacation, which I've done multiple times, not on purpose, and he responds immediately and says, I'm on vacation right now, but I'm going to call the office and get that taken care of.
In one case, he's just getting off the plane.
It's almost like I know he's on vacation, because every time I text him or call him, he's on vacation. Maybe he's just on vacation a lot. I don't know.
There's a lot of vacation right there. We're gonna look into that now.
The point is, though, no matter what he's doing, he responds to the text and says, hey, listen, I'm not in the office right now. I'm going to give them a call, and it's handled. So that right there is greatly appreciated, and I say thank you for everything that you and your office do for us. Thank you.
Thank you for everything, especially during this difficult time that all of us have gone through with COVID and everything else. You guys are great. We were fortunate to have Sheriff Anderson, and for the standards that he implemented while he was there and what he has passed down. We are lucky. We're extremely lucky. But as you mentioned, we could always be better. And I know you're striving for that, and that is something the residents are going to be very thankful for, that you are working and treat people the way you want to be treated. And I look forward to our reports. And thank you again for everything. And be safe, because it's rough, as we all know. It's very rough out there. So thank you.
Thank you.
Chris?
Yeah, I want to thank you guys first. You went through, in my mind, 2 years of tough times of being a police officer. So for me in the Third Ward, thank you tremendously for your service. Sergeant Stewart, thank you. You've always been very responsive in the Third Ward. Kent Road, as you know, is the Indianapolis Mini Speedway. You're always responsive there. One of the things you guys touched on was ATVs. In our area, we have a lot of it, and you're talking about a kid who grew up on a mini bike. So I see it becoming a worse and worse problem. Do you guys see it as a department? I know you know the area, Sergeant Stewart, but I know the Fourth Ward has these problems as well. Is there anything you guys are looking at to, you're never going to stop it, but curb it maybe a little bit? I know disrespect has gone to another level. You know, people at 3 a.m. running through people's backyards is just unacceptable behavior. But is there anything you guys are looking at as a department, maybe to try to curb some of it?
And what we do, and of course, a lot of it is, as Sergeant Stewart said, if we can pinpoint time of day or day of the week or something like that. We have ATV patrols that go out now.
Right.
The full-time patrol takes over, as I said, end of June when the SROs come out, but we send them out now when complaints like that come in. So if we can get, and let Sergeant Stewart know, and he'll get in touch with Detective Locke, kind of coordinates at our office in terms of the ATVs, but we will send the ATVs out. Now, we're not going to go to different, I don't want to go into too much detail about our strategy on doing
Right.
things, but certainly we want to make sure everybody's safe, but we also want to make sure that the quality of life for folks is intact. And
Right.
that can, with people being disrespectful and not thinking about there's no place to ride, that, you know, isn't really everyone else's problem for the people who owns one. We want to make sure everybody's safe on them. So we have different
Exactly.
strategies that we put in place, and we remind people of the places that are okay for them to operate on. A lot of times, our presence in different places, whether it's the power lines or the rail trail or things, when we come across these folks, we like to give them, unless there's a specific with these people, gentle reminder about things. But again, repeat offenders, they've been given a shot at it. And usually, after we're there for a little bit, it dies down. Again, as Sergeant Stewart said, this is the time when, specifically when the ATVs are out, right? It's nice weather finally, everybody's been itching to get out. But it certainly is, it's a safety issue, and it's a respect issue as well. So we want to make sure everybody's safe, and we want to make sure that folks have an opportunity to ride safely where they're supposed to ride.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So let me just say a couple words. Had a lot of acquaintances with Sergeant Stewart. First time I met him, no pun intended, but we met actually at the Dunkin' Donuts. And he actually did us a great service. He was actually off. We had an incident up on Topple Hill Road. I'm sure you're very familiar with that one. We were probably there for the first 6 months. I think he was there every single day trying to help us out. We had a problem with one of the neighbors there, and we were finally able to fix the problem. His team did an excellent job in taking care of that. But we've had a number of other incidents where I can call him on the phone. As Councilman Beal said earlier on, I text or call, and literally we had another incident on All Angels Hill Road. I mean, they were there in 4 minutes, and it made a big difference. And they've been very, very supportive, so your team has been very, very supportive. Sergeant Stewart also, we had opening day for soccer off of Regency Drive, and he was actually off. I got in uniform for the first 4 hours, came over there and helped us to make sure we had about 400 or 500 cars that were going to be on that small road there, and basically patrolled it in. I was kind of down on Cloverdale a little bit, trying to direct traffic myself, but did a great job, and the neighbors were totally satisfied. So can't say enough about your organization, can't say enough about Sergeant Stewart and everything that he does, because he's been a tremendous asset, I think. We do appreciate it, and I hope we can put some more patrols out there as well, because I think it's needed. I agree with the other council people that as the summertime starts coming, you're going to start to see more ATVs, things like that coming out there. And a lot of them don't show their respect to the sheriff's department. They just basically, as you probably know, give you the finger and things like that, which is inappropriate. But we've seen that a lot of times. And I respect your patience and everything else, especially with bail reform and everything else. I know your hands are kind of tied to a certain extent, but you're out there, and we ask you to get out there. You do the best that you can, and I'll tell you, the residents recognize that, so thank you for everything you do. I appreciate it.
Good, thank you.
And the other thing I add is because we're a very diverse community, one of the services that you do provide is where someone requests for some additional security, safety, whether it's a program or it's Halloween or what have you, you're always first to respond and to cover that, and the town also supports that even financially, so it is very much appreciated there. And I just echo everybody else's comments about the service that you have been providing, and starting with Sergeant Begor, when I first took office, it has been responsive. That being said, I know there are still concerns, particularly traffic-related ones, and so maybe we just open up to the floor if there's any questions that people may have. Then come on up to the podium, and if you want to make a comment, a question, please do identify yourself. Whoever does.
Good evening. Thank you very much for this time. I live on Interstate 9D, 2498 Route 9D, and I think they mean 90 miles an hour. Well, we have a major influx of new people from the city who only can drive 30 miles an hour in all the boroughs. So they come up here and they drive like nuts. Guess what? We need more of these guys. Because I'll pull out of my driveway and I'll head south. And as I'm heading towards the Houstonville Post Office and Dairy Mart, I get cars passing me when I'm doing 35. Solid yellow line, oncoming traffic, they don't care. We got to address this. Mr. Stewart, the sign that they have, the sheriff owns, that has the speed of the people coming at it, does it have a camera on it? We ought to get a camera on it and put it out in my front yard, and I'll guarantee you can mail them a lot of tickets. And you don't have to have a car there. But we got to address the problem before children become roadkill. As it is now, I live across the street from Reese's Park. And every year, there's a couple deer to get hit because no one wants to go slow enough to pay attention. That's the reason why I think the speed limit is 35 from there all the way to Ketchum Town. But nobody does it, except me.
Thank you.
I want to thank these guys a lot for coming up and giving me a little enlightenment, because I had a temper and I wanted to go and vent. But they hit me with CO2.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you very much. I kind of believe it will happen.
And thanks for coming. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
You got to get the info.
Yep.
So actually, gentleman brings up a good point. So the speed trailers, we have a speed trailer that I don't think operates anymore. It's probably beyond repair. The highway department had it, but from the county capacity, I know that we have access to resources across the county. The sheriff's office does have some speed trailers. So offline, if we can discuss if there's an option for the town to, in addition to your targeted patrols, perhaps utilize speed trailers just to remind folks what the speed limit is. That might be helpful from a strategical standpoint. The other side of this is the town of Wappinger may fall into a category where we can get funding as a town to purchase assets also, just like we do at the county, right? And I never really thought about it from this perspective, but as a town, we may be able to apply for certain grants that are similar to what we do at the county to get assets, and then if we do have those assets available, to make them additional resources for the sheriff's office to use in the town of Wappinger. It might be something we should talk about offline, because I think that could benefit the whole town without having, that way, I'll be honest with you, that way we can take a resource, add it to the sheriff's office assets so that the town doesn't have something that's non-maintained sitting in a yard for 10 years, right? It can be added to the sheriff's office asset list funded by the town of Wappinger, and then it can go through the same preventative maintenance process to make sure it's going to work, right? That's a conversation I think we should have offline. We have an equipment line here in the budget for, we call it Vandalism Patrol. I always say Town Patrol, because it's not just vandalism, it's a quality of life patrol, right? In the past, we have provided funding for MDT support. We provided some other, an MDT mobile data terminal for those that are watching. Take a look at what we have for assets right now. The vehicles, I don't know how old they are right now, but we purchased the vehicles in the town. Take a look at those. Let us know when we need to start thinking about buying new vehicles, or one at a time, right? I know vehicles right now are very difficult to get at the moment, but if we can at least get it on the radar, put together a timeline for the vehicles. And then in addition to that, any equipment that the town patrol vehicles would need to bring them up to the same standard that your zone cars are, right? So whether it be an MDT, whether it be an AED, whether it be a radar unit, whether it be an LPR, anything like that, put together that list so that we can, as a town, budget for it, right? To get those vehicles up to the same exact standard as the zone cars, and it's not something that's overlooked, because we may be facing challenging fiscal times coming. I think we know we're going to be facing challenging fiscal times, and I think if we have these things planned now, we can better budget for them moving forward.
Yep, agreed.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions from the floor? Come on.
One more thing. I was trying to detour Route 9 traffic, so I turned in the side street right there by the Subaru dealer. Coming around the corner, and there's a little sign and a bucket of concrete flashing 30.
Right. So
I talked to the guy who was right next to it. He goes, "Hey, it works pretty good because it slows everybody down."
So related to that, I've started discussions with, the state and the county, transportation, department on particularly looking at creating, I've talked with Mr. Hand, creating what they call a transit district for 9 and 9D that would see, and there's grant monies available, that would have significant traffic, high-tech, all the sensors, everything else that go into it. 490
Can you get me on that committee?
is, huh?
Can you get me on that
Well,
committee?
yeah, if we create a committee, yeah, because I'll be happy to, because.
There's a lot of people in
Yeah.
Houstonville like to get on it too.
But we have that, and I think it's also something we can coordinate, Chief, with your department too. But I had that discussion a few weeks ago about a transit district that then would enable us to get high-tech improvements in sensors and monitoring, flashing lights, traffic light control, better control over that. I know that Councilwoman Bettina down at Chelsea Road, Ketchum Town, we don't have a light there, but there's talk. So that's an area along Councilman Beal said, where looking at assets and having a task force. I think our resident has made a good point, that we could, set up a committee that looks at that or something offline. But I think it's the right way to go, with aid and assets that will help us.
Yeah, the fixed ones in the village, I don't know if you've seen there's one on List Road. There are fixed speed monitors. There was one on East Main Street also. I spoke to Commissioner Ferry about how that process works. And it has certain positives for specific neighborhoods, but having the mobile asset initially may be better to be able to move it around to different spots. So we'll talk more offline about that. I appreciate the input, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Seeing none, then we'll bring this section of the meeting to a close, and thank you again. And thanks to tell the sheriff.
Really,
how
thank
appreciative
you.
we
Thank you
are.
very, very much. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Take
And
care.
sharing. Thank you.
The next item, we'll move to the public hearing. This is where we will have our public hearing. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So
Okay,
moved.
second.
Okay, motion second, all in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passed. This is a public hearing for a resolution introducing local law of 2022, which would amend Chapter 240 zoning of the town code with respect to the shopping center district and large-scale mixed use. So the public hearing is open. If anyone has any comments they'd like to make, please come on up to the podium, identify yourself, and raise your comment at this time.
Hi, I'm Marcy Wagman, back again. I feel like this public hearing is extremely premature. We've heard some conceptual plans that were presented to the town board concerning one area zoned shopping centers. Our town has 3 shopping center zones. We all understand the social and economic changes that we need to adapt to and make sure our zoning code, best meets our current and future requirements for safe, environmentally sound, economically viable community development. We know that people want to live in communities like hamlets that integrate work, recreation, living, and shopping in areas that are easily walkable. So co-working spaces, small retail shops and restaurants, areas of light manufacturing with well-designed roadways. We all want that. But we deserve to have a better understanding of the details, the implications, and the trade-offs for our whole community that the zoning code updates require. To go from an initial discussion to really specific details and legal code changes with no intervening information sessions, the ability to hear what you think, what the experts, Malcolm, Jim, Tim, what they think and what their thoughts are behind all of this, and to have some time to think about all of it, then we can participate in a discussion during a public hearing. To be presented with complex legal language and asked to respond to it in a public hearing without the benefit of any of that background or understanding isn't fair to us, and it misuses this process. So, for example, we want to change the code to expressly identify a class of citizens, in this case veterans, as having access to housing. And clearly, we all know, and we have nothing against veterans, we should support veterans, but do they want to be segregated from everyone else? Does that mean only single veterans or veterans that are married together can live in this housing? What happens when someone dies? Can they sell the housing? Do they have to go find out if you're a veteran? I mean, I don't understand how that process works. It doesn't make sense to me. Is it veterans with special needs? Well, then let's understand what that means and what the implications are around their special needs. And for what period of time are their services going to be available? Can we rent this housing out for Airbnbs? I mean, none of that has been thought through or discussed. And so, should we try some of this? Should we try to do some special permits? But to lock it into zoning code for 3 shopping center districts is how we get into trouble in this town. We've been there. It's unintended consequences. And I really need to let's think through all of this and let's think through it together, and to ask us and the public who don't have that experience and expertise to respond at this point in time is really premature. So I love the concepts, but let's get to understand the details, talk through some of the implications and how we might address it before we lock it into zoning code changes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other, comments?
Excuse me.
Hi, I'm Alex Reese, 89 New Hamburg Road. And first of all, I thought when I read the zoning proposed zoning code, I think it addresses a real problem that we're having here. We have some malls that, because of economic changes, are facing challenges and will probably face challenges in the future. And these are our places where we have the most infrastructure already there. We have parking, we have stormwater retention, we have water, we have, in many cases, sewer. We have all those things there which make uses like residential a much easier thing to do, particularly at the price levels which this neighborhood needs so much. So I applaud you for considering this. I do agree with Marcy that we have to be careful about what this code says and really think about the implications. Just for instance, warehouses. Well, we need warehouses, but be careful that we don't allow things that make malls go darker very quickly, or large manufacturing where people say, well, I don't want to go there anymore. So be careful about what you allow. We want people there, we want them to use it, and we have a housing issue, and it would be wonderful to be able to use this code to address that issue. So thank you for doing this. Be careful, but move ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you, Al.
Any
you,
other
Alex.
comments? Mr. Horan, I think since the board needs to consider, items, and also we have received comments from both the planning board, which was a general letter of support with some comments, and also the county planning board, then since we do have to prepare, some documents and resolutions for approval at the next meeting, then I propose that, at least, and correct me if I'm wrong, if this is inappropriate, but we keep the public hearing open till the next meeting, and then we can have the additional public hearing at that time, but in the meantime, put together some of the documents that needs to be done. What's your opinion, Mr. Horan?
I think that would be prudent based on the comments that we received from the planning board and Dutchess County Planning with respect to the comments from the public. Probably not coincidentally, the comment of Mr. Reese is very similar to the comments that we received from the planning board, and the comments from Ms. Wagman is very similar to comments we received from Dutchess County Planning. So, in reviewing those comments with respect to veterans, housing, we have some, the Dutchess County had raised some of those issues as to how the program would be administered. Granted, that program will be a work in progress, but, we will flesh that out more for the next draft. And then with respect to the comments regarding, the uses that are permitted, being uses that may, not be necessarily consistent, or I won't say consistent, but encouraging of, the multifamily component. We're going to look at that issue as well. And there are ways to address that through either some sort of, there is some language in the, currently in the law regarding, percentage of commercial uses and stuff, but I think we'll, particularly with respect to warehousing and manufacturing, which, cause concern on the part of the planning board as well. We can look at maybe strengthening that language, particularly with respect to making those special permit conditions that would, restrict when that can take place. And, one of the issues here is this is in essence an attempt at what is called adaptive reuse, which is to, make better use of infrastructure and buildings and things that are on the site currently, so that they, are repurposed to uses that are more in demand than current. So, I don't think anybody in the town wants vacant storefronts and shopping centers that aren't being used. And, we understand that, there is a great need for multifamily housing, and that is being addressed here. It's the other pieces that are a little bit harder to come up with a concept for, since they're not necessarily on the table right now. So, these are just kind of what ifs, but one of the ways that in zoning laws you can regulate them is make them special permit uses, impose some conditions that, the planning board, or, in this case, the town board would look at the overall development project as an overarching whole. So that would be the first cut for this. So, the language here is intentionally flexible, But, you know, we want to perhaps limit the flexibility in certain areas where there may be some unintended
Right.
consequences.
Yes.
I agree.
So with that being said, do I have a motion to adjourn the, public hearing to the June 13th?
Well, what I'd like to do, though, before we adjourn it is, when they come in next time, I'd like to see a more definitive idea of what you plan to do, because right now what I'm seeing is a 50,000-foot level of what you plan on doing. So are you going to start off with the housing first? You're going to do the revitalization of the existing AC Moore and Stop and Shop? Are you going to do storage? What are you going to do first? So I think the audience and myself would like to see more of what you're going to do so they can figure out the kind of questions that we can ask to make sure this is us changing the zone. If we decide to do that, if that's the right thing to do, or we make it a little more constrictive, as our attorney just said. So I think that at the next meeting on the 13th, I'm certainly okay with doing that, but I think we'd like to see a little more, information that, we can actually dig into and have some meat behind.
Mr. Alexander?
Yeah, so everyone jumped up. So good evening, everybody. My name's Neil Alexander. I'm a partner at the law firm of Cuddy and Fader here tonight on behalf of Diamond Properties, who owns the Alpine Commons, and also with me here, as per usual, is Dakota Properties. So a couple of different things. Everyone sort of jumped up before I got up there, so we didn't do the same presentation we've done in April or even back in January when we started this process and having the conversation. I think we've always been pretty consistent in our dialogue that basically the driver right now is Dakota is here. They've been here all the way throughout the process, and the Lot 5 schematic of the large-scale mixed use is the driver here. That is really what we anticipate being able to move forward with right away.
That's multifamily.
That's purely pure multifamily housing. I think what we've always sort of said is the out parcel 6 and out parcel 1, we foresaw as happening later. Obviously, out parcel 3 is the BJ's, where nothing is planned, that's demised, and really a lot of this is about getting activity there so the BJ's stays. Right? With regard to parcel 2, there's been a lot of back and forth on parcel 2. And we've been checking in with the marketplace, trying to see what's going on. And there are different aspects of how that can happen. That's a really important parcel. And that's the one I think, 2 and 4 are sort of what follows from 5. 5 is really with the driver right now, and that's really candidly the tendency that's going to make everything move forward. We don't know what's going to happen relative to, the way it all plays out is 3 exists, 5's the driver. That's the 144 units of multifamily. Once you have that level of activity, then the site selectors know something's going on. They know there are people there. They know the drivers, and that's when the phone will start, ringing and will be coming forward. I think what we try and draft our intent with drafting the legislation, which we initially put forward, and then obviously your consultants have been refining and honing, and they've pushed back on a lot of things that we had asked for relative to automotive uses up there, outdoor uses, and those were just said as no. So this is an attempt at the property owner sort of saying, we know what the phone's ringing for, we know a lot of that isn't what you want. Our hope is once we get people up there, the phone's going to ring a different way, and we're going to be able to bring those people forward, as opposed to sort of more of the revolving door of what you've seen, where people come in, it doesn't really quite stick, it doesn't take, and it disappears. So I don't think we can actually candidly come on June 13th and give you a whole programmatic, because we don't have a whole buffet line of people waiting to come forward yet. They need to see the legislation. So I can tell you, because Dakota's been here all of 2022, every step of the way, that they're ready to roll for the multifamily. We know that BJ's is excited to see them and is hopeful that they can come forward. And then the rest of that is not as clear as to who and how and what those names are going to be, candidly. So I just don't want to misrepresent or misset expectations when we come back on.
So I guess the question is, I see that number 5 has to be your first, because that's where you're going to make your money to get the project off the ground. But when are you going to do section 2, which is the the current
So
facilities.
the hope is to get that repositioned. We've had people come forward for uses for the AC Moore and the former supermarket that we know you're not keen on, but they meet the zoning code. And we don't want to come forward with that. So our hope is that when, and we've seen from, as you know, Diamond is well-renowned throughout the region for repositioning, both through its spins bowls and Grand Prix, and they've repositioned things like a 600,000 square foot Grand Union warehouse that had a hole in the building and was halfway underground in Mount Kisco, and that's where Grand Prix is now. That's where the trampoline park is. And they do mixed use great. They were for many years. That's where Wine Spectator had all of its warehouses. Was in that 600,000 square foot building that at one point in time they got back up to 98% occupancy. Obviously, they've been hit by COVID too, with repositioning that asset fully. So they know this market and they're known, but they have to have something to promote. And this legislation is what they would promote back out to the entertainment and food service and other uses that I think would make you excited. And that's also why they've been committed to, when you see, the little outbuilding kiosk-like buildings in the green, they know from doing La Factoria on the waterfront in Peekskill and turning around those buildings with restaurateurs and getting Captain Lawrence to put a brewery facility there and a ropes course, that they know how to get people to come and have an experience. Obviously, ropes course first, then beer. I think it goes without saying. So they know how to reposition things, but they need to be able to go into the marketplace and say, we have legislation that allows us to move ahead. And right now, they don't have that legislation. So what they're stuck with doing is having uses knock on their door that we know that the town isn't excited to see. So, I just want to make it clear that there is no grant. There's a vision that we think we can fulfill over time, but this is many, many years this sketch is going to take to deploy. We know that, in years 0 through 3, Dakota can build those 144 units. They've been here the whole way. We're hoping that while they're building, that's going to be a surge into the marketplace, and we've seen it time and time again. They took over Orange County Choppers when that went under. They're building in Newburgh, and they put that back into place with a Spins Bowl there. So this is something they've done many places throughout. There's a Spins Bowl over on Taft Avenue in Poughkeepsie. They took that old bowling alley and put that back into a lot of energy as well. So this is something they've done repetitively and successfully, all within 25 miles of here. And they're confident that this plan can work. They just don't know who the pieces are. And I just didn't want you to think that we were going to come in and say, okay, so here's everybody we got lined up.
No, and I think you've been consistent with all the 3 previous meetings in saying that, so.
But didn't you talk about a glorified village? I thought you were looking at something like an Eastdale or something that you were looking to do.
Eastdale is unique, and candidly, I don't think anyone wants to wait 10 years like it took with Eastdale.
But what they're talking about with these different lots, that it would come together.
It would eventually get there.
Yeah,
It's just not
eventually
going
get
to. So just to go back.
I just don't want to see all warehousing, storage, et cetera, and I know that's...
I don't think that's the intrigue here.
Diamond is
That's not the
famous for,
interest.
so...
I think when you look at the mix here, Lot 5 is Dakota, Lot 3 is BJ's, Lot 4 we've even played a lot with in our discussions with you all and your planners, right? Does that work because it sits a little bit on a promontory, but it needs to be a bridge somehow between Dakota and Lot 5 and then back down to Lot 2, but we have that roundabout we put in, right? But you have some grade change. So is it a restaurant? Can we get a restaurateur who's excited to take that big a pad? I mean, that would be our hope, right? And that's a great little activated space. And then does a hotelier want to go on to 6? Or is 6 some kind of other kind of housing? We don't know because of where it sits. 2 is the grand plan. And that's something Diamond is incredibly behind.
Well,
right?
that's
But
what
we
I'm trying to
haven't
get an
quite
idea
figured-
of. What
we
is it?
haven't quite figured out yet, candidly, is we want to activate the frontages for those 2 buildings, right? And we talked about how the backside of the building where the loading docks are, putting in some kind of, whether it's brewery or distillery or self-storage, someone who's going to use those loading docks because that's an embedded, imbued, latent asset, right? But we know we want to try and break up the massing of the frontage, because if you don't have a few people on that front strip, then the kiosks won't work the same way, and then you won't have that green that we're hoping to be not only a common space, whether it's a farmer's market or someplace that, the town could have its July 4th concert kind of a thing that a lot of towns do, could be right there. There are a lot of different things for that use, but also the retailers there, we want them to use it as well.
Well, you can do things like breweries. That's allowed in the code already today, correct? So
I don't believe it is right now. I'd have to look again. I don't believe in the SC zone you can do that right now.
Barbara,
I'd
can you
have
do
to
it?
look.
I mean, let me just say something here. So this is a concept. This is conceptual, okay? We need to be thinking outside the box. I've said this before. The current zoning is antiquated and does not work and will not work. Drive through Wappinger Plaza.
That's right.
How many empty storefronts do we have in Wappinger Plaza right now? About 80% of the entire mall? I don't see those being occupied as we head into a fiscal downturn, right? We have investors that are here in this town right now that have a model that is going to be phased in, creating housing within this particular parcel that I believe is a solution to feeding the parcel. If you look at the model that they're doing on the Hudson River Psychiatric Center, they're doing it backwards. They're building the commercial side out first prior to the residential, but they have a residential component that's going to feed the commercial component, right? You look at Eastdale Village, same type of scenario with multi-use, town center type zoning. Our current zoning as it stands right now does not facilitate this type of a project.
Yeah.
And my understanding is there's 2 shopping center zones. I could be wrong. This one and
There's
where
three.
where
There
is
are
the
three.
where is
There's
the
3
third
of
one?
them.
But we're only proposing changes for the SC zone, which affects 3 properties essentially.
Right.
That's it.
Right, so
So it's not that broad in reach. We're essentially saying we're trying to bring this one back
Right.
and keep an eye on the other 2 properties. And candidly, I don't think the 3rd property is even large enough
No.
to take advantage.
are you talking about
of this.
DeGarmo Plaza where
yeah.
Falls
Yeah,
Diner
that's
is?
DeGarmo, that's right.
I don't think anyone's going to be putting 160 units on that.
No.
But that said, we cannot continue in this town to have paralysis by analysis. We cannot continue. And I understand, with all due respect to Ms. Wagman, I understand we have to look and think these things through. But as we move forward with concepts and as we move forward with investors that are sitting here in our town willing to invest millions of dollars to meet a housing deficit, which is a non-debatable stat in this town, a fact, we must, and we have an obligation, explore these options. That is my opinion in this town. This is a significant parcel. This is the highest rateable, most valuable rateable in this town, which happens to sit on the roadway that has 40,000 cars per day on it. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. We can either have people driving to this town or driving through this town. And right now, most people are driving through this town. So we have a responsibility to explore these options. And I do agree that we need to look at any inadvertent side effects that could occur by text amendments or zoning adjustments. I get that. But we must move forward, as Mr. Reese said. We have to continue to move this town forward. And a property that is becoming more vacant by the day, I drove by there at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning the other night. There's 50 cars up there racing, doing burnouts in the parking lot on Saturday night. There are sinkholes in the parking lot now due to people misusing the property. It is falling apart up there. It's becoming a public safety hazard. So we can't afford to not explore these options.
I'm not saying not to explore, I'm saying do it smartly. That's all I'm saying.
Smartly,
I
yeah.
agree.
And I want to have a little more details. I'm sorry, right now,
I
what he's
agree.
telling me is one small piece of the big pie, and I get it, it's conceptual, but give me a little more details so we can make an informed decision, because it's a big decision.
I do
Once we
have-
make that zone change, it's a big
But you're not giving me
decision.
site plan approval. You're giving
Yeah.
me the
Wait,
ability.
This is 50,000 feet.
All you're doing is giving me the ability to go out into the marketplace to then come
Agreed.
forward with a site plan application
Right.
where we're going to go through all those details with the planning board. And what's really also important here is you're actually not giving me any additional FAR that I'm entitled to right now.
That's right.
Or any additional coverage that I'm entitled to right now. What you're allowing me to do is not come in with an Amazon warehouse, which I would be allowed to. You're allowing me to diversify. That's what you're actually allowing me to do, and to bring uses you'd prefer to see instead of a billiard hall for 40,000 square feet.
Right.
And
Which
we
is
under-
allowed.
And we understand that, and we're thankful for that. But again, as the councilmen
But
have
if I
mentioned,
can't give you
let me
that,
finish,
I'm
please.
sorry.
Thank you. It has to be smart. We have residents here that are bringing concerns, and we are going to address those, and we're going to be smart about it. I understand you have leeway. I understand what you can do with that. But you're right, nobody wants to see a dead mall. Nobody does. But it has to be smart also. I've asked, where does the town of Wappingers sit with regard to housing? Jim, I think I mentioned that to you also. Whereas the town of Wappingers has multiple apartment complexes versus the county as far as housing go. Am I correct? Where are we?
I don't,
Where are we?
Malcolm,
Just read
Malcolm, can
read
you
the
answer
report
that?
that just came out.
Let me,
The
Can
report
I-
just came out 2 weeks ago that indicates this town
We
is
have
in a
nothing.
housing deficit.
let me finish. I would like to see the statistics. Malcolm, can you bring that in at the next meeting? Where the town of Wappingers is with regard to rentals and everything. And Bill, I'm not debating that. I'd like to see the facts, whereas the residents would like to see the facts.
There's a
And I
reason
think
why,
that's important.
there's a reason why these complexes are sold out before they're built.
Some
mean,
complexes
No,
are.
with all due respect, Councilwoman, I have a volunteer fire department right
Mm-hmm.
now that I am in the leadership of, where I have about 80% of my members that cannot find a place in this town.
I understand that. I
And it's not,
understand that.
it's not because, there are so many inventories available. There's nothing available. There's nothing available in apartment buildings. There's nothing available. Everything is unavailable. And if you read the Dutchess County Planning Department's report that was issued probably about 3 or 4 weeks ago, it substantiates what I'm saying.
I also would
Exactly.
like to see the numbers, Malcolm, so as the planner, please bring that in at the next meeting so that our constituents can understand that. I think it's important. And if that's the case, I don't have a problem. However, again, the town of Wappingers has a lot of apartment complexes, and they have a lot of condos, and they have a lot of townhouses, more so than, I would like to say, Fishkill or our neighboring municipalities. And I understand there's a surge, but a lot of people are moving out of this town, state, because they can't afford to live here. And that's a fact. And I don't see that changing, especially in the view of the economic situation that we're in right now. So I think we have to be smart.
I don't like the fact that people keep implying we're not being smart. I don't like that at all.
Nobody's saying that we're not. I think we have to.
Yes, two of you
No,
are.
I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm saying
yes.
we need to continue
We're
to be
talking
smart.
about smart growth, that's all. We're
Smart,
not
this
talking
is the
about-
definition of smart growth,
Yeah,
with all
it
due
is.
respect.
I
Well,
agree.
so I think we
This-
should continue.
This is the definition of smart growth.
And
and
if
I-
we continue down this road, we're going to chase these people out.
Right.
BJ's could shut down, and then, Councilman, you're going to have that on your shoulders. We're going to lose a huge ratable.
Okay, don't go down
No,
there. That was the
I don't-
wrong,
this
that
is
was the
not
wrong
place or
place
the
to
time
go.
to
Oh, no,
discuss
it's
this
not
right
the wrong
now.
place
Yes,
to
it
go.
is.
You've raised
This
this issue and
You're out of
said
line
that they
when
don't
you
have a
s-
smart.
you're out of line when you
This
say
is
that.
not the
I am
time
not
to
out.
discuss
Well, let's just look
this.
at this, though. Let's look
Yes.
at what the uses that are allowed right now, again, versus the uses that we're discussing. They're going to put a Jiffy Lube in front of Goodwill. That's my understanding. That, to me, is ludicrous, but that's allowed in that zone. Okay? So we're going to sit here and have a conversation that is critiquing a project that is presenting a mixed use that I believe is consistent with what we need to do to move forward. And we've had no conversation about the fact that there's an oil change place going into Sonic. I mean, that is crazy to me. That's why we need to have these conversations, and that's why text amendments are necessary, and that's why we need to be looking at expanding the uses within these existing zones and getting rid of this antiquated school of thought that has existed for decades because it doesn't work anymore. You're never going to see a jewelry store in Wappinger Plaza again. You're not going to see Liberty Travel return. You're not going to see those types of entities come back. Those days are over. We need to rethink these zones. DeGarmo Plaza is fortunate because it happens to be probably 100%, well, minus the laundromat. Or not laundromat, the cleaners. It's basically 100% occupied. I don't put that in the same category as a large acreage property like Alpine Commons, where we need to think outside the box. Let's not forget, it was the early 1990s when this project was coming into this town. And there was a lot more proposed than what we ended up with. And in the early 90s, the school of thought was, let's put this thing off Route 9 because nobody wants to see it. And that's an ignorant approach, because now trying to market that property doesn't work because you can't see it from Route 9. So here we have a proposal where a housing element is going to feed the property just by nature, organically feed the property and allow for us to expand the use. That, to me, again, is something we have an obligation to explore. And as we come into uncertain fiscal times, we need to avoid the paralysis by analysis here. If we have investors that are on the sidelines ready to look at this type of a project, we need to be facilitating them, not obstructing them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. I tend to agree with you in many regards. However, I'm looking at a document from the County of Dutchess that addresses a few concerns that need to be addressed. And there's nothing wrong with talking about this and discussing this. And however, if a developer decides to leave our town, so be it. It's not meant to be.
We can't afford that.
I understand what we can afford and what we can't afford. But I think it's important that we're smart about this. And we plan better.
I think you've totally missed my point. I'm really supporting this mixed-use property. I really, and the reuse that Alex spoke about, and taking advantage of that infrastructure. What I'm suggesting, though, is to go from, we want this idea to hardened legal code that none of us have talked through, none of us have understood. I mean, look at how many times we talked about 15-foot lighting poles. That took like 6 months. So can we at least apply some of that thought and energy to, let's go through what these code changes are step by step and see that we all understand it, have that robust discussion, then have a public hearing, and then go ahead with something that we all feel comfortable with. I think we all agree on the concept, but we have to go through the details, and having a public hearing and having this, whatever it is, I'm sorry, look at your papers, you know, presented on a Friday so I can go through and spend my weekend redlining this stuff going, what the hell's that about? Wow, I don't understand that. Having someone like Malcolm, having someone like Jim explain what those implications are or reading it out to us would be much more helpful, and then have the public hearing.
Can I help a little bit on this and bridge this gap? A couple of things. Because we did a lot of what we did when we were drafting it and going back and forth with the town's consultants, just so you know, was we were left with a cap to not have any more development as far as intensity on the site when we rewrote the code than what we were allowed today. I think that's really important to know. So this doesn't.
You need to get closer to the microphone.
I was just trying to.
No, closer so the people can hear what you're saying. Thank you.
So a couple of things that I think are important. And the public hearing is being continued, and we're going to come back. Part of my pushback was not intended as a pushback. What it was intended was to clarify what I won't be able to bring, because what we don't know. So maybe I got a little too far into the weeds on that, and it came across in the wrong way, and I apologize for that. But a couple of different things that are really important, I think. This is only affecting the SC zone. The SC zone, there are only 3 properties mapped in the SC zone in the entirety of town. The Hannaford site, this site, and the Gerald.
DeGarmo
I just
Hill.
have a mental block on that. I am so sorry. That 3rd site, which is very tiny. Your code already has in it a mixed-use section that was already written and already applies to the SC zone as today. That was the base for writing the large scale. When we then started extrapolating out the notion and the idea of a large-scale one with a bigger property, we're 86 acres versus 4 acres, and I think Hannaford's about 25 roughly, just plus or minus. So the theory is this property and maybe the Hannaford will be able to take advantage of these provisions. It was to create maximum flexibility. There were a lot of conversations about, yes, the drawing that everyone's seen and we keep referencing, there is some Euclidean elements to it as opposed to performance zoning, right? But we can only do so much because the BJ's, it's not a green site. BJ's is sitting in the way back of it, right? So we're kind of stuck with that sitting there where you may not have wanted that if you were looking at this as a green field. But as Mr. Reese pointed out, we already have a signalized intersection. We already have turning lanes, both north and south. We already have access to water and sewer in front of our property. So there are a lot of good bones here. But what we set was essentially the coverage, we kept the coverage as what's allowed in the SC zone. There was a ton of dialogue on height. We were told to sort of keep the height where it is while at the same time giving enough height so that lot 2, which is supposed to have residential over retail, it could actually happen because there's a lot to think about financially. So there was a lot of back and forth in the code drafting, and yes, you're right. You all jumped up a little faster than I did, so we didn't go line by the code tonight, but there's been a lot of code written, and as you've seen, as far as the veterans housing, I think part of the flexibility that was left there, and I think the county completely missed this candidly, is no one knows what program under veterans housing will ultimately provide the financing. So if you write into law now under the stricture, because it's going to have to be a subsidized housing program, for the veterans housing. That's the only way it's going to be built. So it's not, that program is going to dictate what the rules are. So there was an attempt to leave a lot of flexibility there. And that's why it was amorphous, because it's not like an inclusionary zoning program where you know what the AMIs are going to be and all the rules exist already under fair housing. Veterans housing is by definition an exception to fair housing under the fair housing laws, right? So there was a lot of thought, and I appreciate the opportunity to sort of monologue here, but because I think it's important for the public in particular to know there's been a lot of thought, there's been a lot of back and forth. We've been knocked around a bunch too, so there's no one's been capitulating here, because we wanted to go 5 stories over on lot 2 over the residential, because that actually is a lot more financeable than what we're being offered here. It's a lot harder, candidly, to keep us at this lower height. But I think there were concerns of that didn't even allow us to get to the point we felt, candidly, that 5 stories was something that once you gave us the ability to do it, we could talk about during site planning and actually do visual studies and balloon floats to figure out whether Low C and Old Hopewell and 9 would see it, and we were just knocked right aside and told that's not going to happen on our watch. So there's been
Who said that?
Back and forth. I mean, I think we were got the sense of going back and forth that 5 stories wasn't.
I don't know.
On
The funny
car.
thing is, I'm the council member for this particular area, and I'm not part of these conversations. So I don't know who's having these conversations or who you're talking to, but I represent that area.
I guess what I'm trying to say is there's been a lot of back and forth. We're open to further dialogue. We're open to refinement. But I do think that there's been a lot of dialogue too, and that's the rumor I want to dispel.
Right. We've had conversations here on this, at these meetings 3 times,
Right.
and my position has been clear. We need to explore new options to make this parcel successful. I'm willing to have those conversations. I respect your opinion, definitely not. I don't have an issue with what you're saying with respect to making sure we evaluate all of the possible side effects that could happen, right? And I appreciate your input on previous matters too. But that said, I want to make sure this town is moving forward. Okay, I've been here for a long time, and this town has been a progressive and proactive town. We have led the way on multiple fronts. I want to continue to lead the way. I believe that what other municipalities are exploring with respect to mixed use, housing, and commercial is the future. Thank you.
Any other comments? I have a motion to adjourn the public meeting hearing until the, what is it, the 13th of June, correct? Motion
Second.
and second. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passed. Next item is a motion to open the public portion of the meeting. This is for items 8, 9, and 10. Do I have a motion?
Move.
Second.
Okay, motion and second, open the public portion of the meeting. All in favor?
Excuse me.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, motion passed.
Wait,
So,
wait.
yes, Marcy.
Put the microphone down. Thank you.
I don't understand why we have the public portion of the meeting before we have the discussions covering the topics that we're expected to have comments on or questions. I mean, I don't know, I just met this evening Mr. Artis. I have no idea what he's going to present. I don't know how to ask a question, I don't know how to make a comment, I don't know. So then we have a bunch of resolutions. I don't know anything about generators, that's fine. Redbud trees, what do you want me to say? Why don't we have these discussions first, understand what your comments are, what your positions are, and then the public can come up and have a comment or a question or ask for a clarifying point of view. I've sat through so many of these meetings now, and we keep having the public comment period before any information is presented. I hope you would want to have informed comments, clarifying questions, be able to, ask, for some more detail. So I really ask you to re-look at how the agendas are put together, and please present the information first, and then ask for the public portion to be put in. And I promise I will stick to the agenda, I will stick to the information that's presented, but I really want to have an open conversation here, and this format just doesn't work. So,
And Jim,
thank
correct
you.
me if I'm wrong, this is based on parliamentary procedure in an effort for meetings to run more efficiently. Public comment period is generally put to comment on agenda items that are going to be presented and voted upon. There's not supposed to, by design, be a back and forth between residents or conversation going on between residents.
That is correct, and, with respect to the agenda items, the material is on the town website ahead of time, so, that's the information that the board has,
Okay,
for
so
the
I
most
can-
part.
Yeah, and to that point, Walter Artis's presentation, all that information's on the town website.
I mean,
We
Walter
put most
Artis's
of it there.
presentation is very dense.
Yeah.
So, but again, it's not really possible to have a public comment session after the discussion, because the vote takes place after the board's discussion. So the public would then be commenting after
okay,
the resolution had
on
taken
the
place.
resolutions, I take your point, but on the other two, like, I'm supposed to comment on items for special considerations or new business?
Yeah, I mean, so, no.
To the
I mean,
extent that we have it. This
Right,
time, we don't
right.
have that, we
Right.
have identified those in the past. We
Right.
just don't have one today.
So, I mean, with respect to, like I said, and I don't think it would be, similar to the presentation that was made by the sheriff's office. I mean, if somebody wanted to comment on Walter Artis's report afterward.
Yeah, we've allowed that in.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think
have a
that
problem with
would, yeah. I mean, again, it's,
It's
that's,
just,
it's
I've sat through
regarding
a number of
stormwater
meetings.
management program, but.
And there's conversation that goes on, and then the public has no opportunity to say, I need to understand that more, or can I please get more information, or here's my viewpoint. I'm just trying to say that you're here representing us, right? And that we should have the right to make a comment at an appropriate time. That's
Well, I
all
think
I'm
that
saying.
the reason why the agenda is structured like this is for the purposes of keeping it organized. However, there's been many times where folks will raise their hand prior to a vote, and we would have the ability to entertain a question from the floor. We've done that. Never once have I ever seen someone ignored in this room that's had a question with respect to a vote going on at a meeting. But I can tell you that I've been through many seminars on the way these meetings are set up, and that's the reason why it's set up. There are some towns that do allow for comment at the end of the meeting, but the professionals will tell you they highly recommend not doing that because you can lose control of the meeting, and that's what has been determined.
But
Now,
even those towns that allow it, they usually have the resolutions voted, you know. and
the vote's
actually-
already done at that point.
It's already done. It's
Yeah, I
already
mean,
done at that time.
So, I mean, just for point of clarification, you know, under the open meetings law, there is no requirement to allow the public to comment. That's at the discretion, the open meetings law, with the exception of a public hearing, you know, a municipal body does not have to permit the public to speak. So that's just one thing that I think a lot of people don't understand with respect to the open meetings law. The public has a right to attend the meeting, to observe the meeting, but the public does not have the absolute right to comment at a public meeting under the open meetings law. So that's first. And, you know, to the point, again, with respect to the comments at the end of the meeting, you know, the municipalities that have done that typically do it, you know, on topics that may not necessarily be germane to the agenda. And, you know, it does open, you know, a wide range of things. And again, the whole point of parliamentary procedure and agendas is to make the most efficient use of the board's time. So, you know,
And not
that's,
to be most responsive to the citizens for whom they represent.
No, that's not true. That's not true.
Well, that's
It's not true.
basically what you
The
just
purpose of the
said.
meeting is for us to come here and vote on resolutions, not to have a conversation for 5 hours. And I've said this before, okay? This board especially has been overly transparent and open, allowing for the back and forth discussion here in this room. Previous boards, I've been here for 5 supervisors. I've been here for supervisors that have had town board meetings that have been 1 hour long. And the reason why they were 1 hour long is you come in, the resolutions are presented and voted on, and we're out the door. And that
With
is
no comment.
with no comment. And that is why, that is the basis of parliamentary procedure. Folks will come and want to speak. We have entertained that option. However, the board does not have to even allow that. I've had supervisors here that have not allowed public comment.
Okay,
But don't roll your eyes.
I'm
Don't
not.
roll your
Yeah, and
eyes.
I've gone out of my way to allow a comment.
I'm not
We can
trying
open-
to, I'm just trying to say, from a citizen's point of view, who
Right.
I have been here
Yes.
quite a number of meetings,
Mm-hmm.
quite a number of months, it's just very confusing to have the public comment period, and then there's a robust discussion. And I understand that, you know, I've run meetings before. You want people to have a period of time and to keep to the agenda, and you don't. But it's very confusing to say, okay, it's the public comment period, let's open, you know, for public portion, when, the rules are I can only speak on these topics, but the topics haven't been reviewed yet. So.
Because the
what-
idea is that that's your time to provide input to the
Right.
future votes that are going to occur. That's the idea.
Okay.
I mean, I'm available anytime you have a question. You can call me, you can email me.
So am I.
That's how
We all are.
government works.
Everybody is.
Right? I think the idea of the town board meeting being that forum to have that ongoing discussion between constituents that's not the point of the town board meeting. The town board meeting is when the actionable items become resolutions and are voted on. So if you have a question about a pending resolution or something that's being proposed, that conversation should be occurring offline, not necessarily within the town board meeting. That's my understanding.
Thank
Again,
for
if you
that
have any
clarification.
questions or concerns or issues, you can reach me anytime,
Okay.
or the
so
supervisor.
You'll be responding to my several notes to you. But anyway, thank you.
What was
Thank
that?
you for the, I've got some notes into you.
You've got some notes to me?
Yeah, notes I've sent to you.
Okay, and I haven't responded to them?
No.
Okay, then I haven't received them.
Okay, we'll
Okay.
follow up with that. Thanks.
Okay, you can
Okay.
also speak to me after the meeting or before the meeting, because I respond to all emails. If you haven't gotten a response from me, then I did not receive it. Thank you.
Any other?
But Marcy, thank you for coming forward as a resident, really. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, that takes the time to come to these meetings. That's very appreciative by all of us on this board.
Yep.
So, thank you.
Any other public comments? Alex
Air
gonna say
conditioning. No.
I mean, I have very little wisdom. Marcy's a wonderful person. And God bless you, Marcy, really. It's true. I don't have terribly much to add, except I love the concept of the community garden. I think it's extraordinary good use for Carnwath. And I think Brian and Courtney are fabulous people. I really hope that as this moves forward, it turns into a very successful and wonderful project. I do think for those of us who don't like to lug our equipment to the place we're gardening, it might be good to have a place where they can store things so you don't have to throw everything into the back, like their hose and their seeds and their buckets and things like that. So think about that. I also know that people can be very proprietary, so it should be a locker. So think on that, and I think redbud trees are beautiful. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Alex.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Seeing none, do I have a motion to close the
Make a
public
motion to close
portion?
the public hearing.
Second.
Motion and second, close the public portion. All in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, motion passed. Walter, come on up. And I do want to say that working with Walter, you know, he is, you know, really an
Gentleman.
outstanding professional, but we've worked very hard to get more than I think any other municipality on our website, you know, correct?
Correct.
With respect to this particular matter.
Correct.
You know, and Walter's worked hard in presenting materials, and I think Tom Barr and Joey have worked hard in making a very comprehensive site that addresses all this. And we have the historical documents, which is really the same as today with updates. So the floor is yours, sir.
I'm going to follow up with your last discussion. With regard to this annual report, it is on the town website, and any resident can provide comment anytime. Then what's required, that comment needs to be addressed in the following year's annual report. So just so everyone's aware of that, comments can be made any time of the year. It's followed up in the next annual report. That being said, I request it to be on the agenda. It's that time of year again. Stormwater Management Program Annual Report for the reporting period March 10th, 2021 to March 9th, 2022 is complete. It's required to be sent into the DEC by June 1st, and it's generally consistent with previous reporting periods. And I'd also request the board authorize the supervisor to endorse the municipal compliance certification as well. One other point I'd like to bring up to the board, and I'm thinking to come back to maybe the June or July meeting. The DEC did issue a new Ms4 permit on January 12th. It went out for public comment. I submitted a memo on behalf of the town of Wappinger. Kind of a waiting game at this standpoint. Talking to other individuals and other stormwater coalitions in the Mid-Hudson region. I have more information as time goes on with regards to this permit that may or may not come out. They did issue a draft MS4 permit in 2017. They had such a high volume of comment that they actually tabled that permit, pulled it back, and I guess they've been working the past 5 years to come out with this new one. So we'll see what happens. Public comment period closed on March 22nd.
And we did submit
Yes,
comments.
we submitted.
An extensive comments.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm thinking maybe come back again in July or something like that.
But for today,
Right.
you need approval of this report
That's correct.
to be officially submitted.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. Sure.
And make a motion
Okay.
to,
Okay, motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, motion passed. And then Jim,
Thank
you
you.
can just write up the official wording. Thank you.
Thank
Walter.
you
Very good,
so
thank
much,
you. And
really.
I'll be in
Thank you.
contact with regards to any updates and be back in front of you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and happy
Thank
9th
you.
birthday to Raina. Appreciate that. My dog's also 9, my shepherd.
Yeah, I know. Steve, it's a little bit, no, well, before you do, it's a little bit cool. At least I don't know what it is down there, but it is colder up here, so maybe you can check into that. So the next item as he's doing that is related to the resolution approving the contract for repairs for Town Hall Generator, Resolution 2022-103. And I think
Thank
while
you.
Steve is up, he can address the lock, matter, okay?
Yeah, this job has turned out to be more complex than originally thought it was, and the electrician's still working on his portion of this, the quote, so I don't have the total amount for that yet.
I think we
So
need
now-
an amount before we can approve
Right,
the
right.
resolution.
So,
Yeah, I wasn't aware
So-
this was on the agenda.
Can we
we talked
table
last
this?
week, you said you'd have the
I
generator
expected
quote.
it to be, but it
Okay.
Yeah.
didn't happen.
Yeah, so that should be
So
tabled.
let's table this,
Yeah.
please?
Right.
I make a
Okay.
motion
Can
to
somebody
table it.
second it?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Second.
There's second.
Thank you.
Motion second, all in
Thanks,
favor to
Steve.
table?
Seriously, thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, motion passed. Steve, why don't you just address, since we added to the agenda and it wasn't a particular place to lock for the
Oh,
west
yeah.
door?
We've been having issues with the exit door here on this end of the building. It doesn't automatically latch when you walk out, and then there's been problems with the keys allowing you to enter as well. This building is approaching 40 years old. That is original to the building. It's pretty much wore out, and there's more reliable systems available today. Got a quote, I think it was $3702 to have the latch
He
and
sent
locking
us a
system
note.
on
Yeah,
that particular
you sent us the
door.
note.
You sent
which
us
I
a note with
forwarded
the
to you.
information, yeah. Thank you.
And, I'd like to move in that direction. That way we'd just eliminate all the problems we've.
How long will it take to repair that?
I hate to commit to something. It's going to depend on how quickly we can
Roughly.
get the equipment in. It'll take a day to install,
Okay.
but, with everything is difficult to get supplies here.
Can people go out the door?
We have not been using it. You can get out in an emergency.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Right. You can get out in an emergency, but we are not using that door because it is not locking.
No, I
behind
understand
the-
that. I just
right.
want to make
But
sure
as an emergency exit, it still functions.
people can still get out. Okay.
Right.
Do you
Thank you.
have a line for it? I had requested Frederick to give me a line.
That would be the town hall line. I'm not sure what the balance is on that.
Yeah, I'd asked them,
It's
but I didn't receive it.
450, 1620.450 is the line number.
Okay. Thank you.
So I'll give them a call then tomorrow and.
Okay, well, we
Need a motion?
Yeah,
need a
okay.
motion.
I'll second
Yeah,
it.
motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or
Sorry.
abstentions?
Yeah, kinda
Seeing
jumped
none, the
ahead there,
motion
But I see
passes.
everybody nodding their head, so.
No,
Right.
we're in agreement.
Steve, we need to make sure that the key box, the Knox box, has keys to every door in this building, and right now it does not.
I wasn't aware of that.
The town clerk's office has a different key system than the town hall, and if there's an emergency in the middle of the night here, the purpose of a Knox box is for the fire department to be able to get into these rooms to investigate anything that's going on, and right now we can't, and that's going to mean that doors are going to be taken down. So can you resolve that for us?
I will have a discussion with you on that.
Can it be resolved?
It can be resolved,
Okay.
but there's going to have to, I'd rather talk offline about
Okay.
that, please.
It needs to be resolved.
Okay, the board would like to know,
We can't have
The
certain
It's
areas,
details.
a topic for executive session.
that's
Okay.
fine then.
but let me just go on the record with saying that we cannot have partial access to this building during an emergency situation.
I agree with the
God
councilman.
forbid somebody is unconscious and trapped in an office and you're delaying the ability for rescuers to get to people. Thank you. Not you, but
But,
But,
yeah,
the circumstance.
thank you.
okay.
Oh, my God.
Just looking to see if there's anything else on there.
Well, Steve, before you, well, you did sit down, but on the redbud trees, we had a quote, but you had also raised with me the issue with respect to, you don't have the equipment that can properly fertilize it. correct?
Right. The deep root system is actually an injection system where they stick a tube down into the ground and inject the fertilizer to the root level. And the, what was that called?
Desiccant.
Desiccant.
Yeah.
Desiccant.
What that is a wax coating that you put on the plant in the fall, and it kind of seals the plant and keeps the moisture in it so that the harsh winds and such don't dry the plant out or give it the frost burn. That is $200 a gallon to purchase. So I'm speaking with the attorney just before the meeting here, and we feel that is a good safety precaution and fairly cheap insurance to ensure that the plants are...
So the full quote that Lehigh
Right.
gave is
Take
appropriate
those two
one from your
options.
point of view.
So it would
Wise
be,
choice.
so the resolution would be amended by increasing it by, the desiccant is 175, and the deep root fertilization is an additional 175, so.
So
And
that's
that
not
gives
part of,
you a-
that's not part of the quote of 2618?
No, it's extra.
Yeah, he added in the documents, Al, but,
But not, are we talking about the
Yep.
red? the
We can
red
talk
bud-
about it right now,
red-
yes.
Red bud trees? Okay. I'm curious, did we go to any other vendors in the town
I
of
wasn't involved
Wappingers
in
that
this.
were?
huh? Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
Thanks, Joey. I mean, I'm all for saving the tree with the wax, and especially with our winters.
Following up on Councilwoman Bettina's comments at the last meeting when we spoke about the red bud trees, I followed up with Sunny Gardens, and the quote for the tree that we bought out front here, times that by 5, the amount of trees that we'd be getting from Lehigh would be just under $700, I believe, $690 or
Does
so.
that include planting, or just the tree itself?
That's just the tree itself. It does not include any of the special maintenance done to it, but it's just under $700 for the 5 trees, and I would plant.
But those trees would be this size, whereas what they are proposing is a much larger size. Yeah,
Well, 6 to 7 feet,
yeah.
I think is the proposal, right?
That tree is
And the
about
diameter
4 or
is
5,
large.
yeah.
Okay.
And they are going to fix the gazebo.
Yes.
However, when we spoke at the last meeting, it was only regarding the planting of trees from Sunny Gardens, if I'm correct.
Yes.
I had asked if you would go out and check other nurseries within the town to see if they had any availability, or if they would,
Yes, you had asked about that as well, so we followed up with the quote with Sunny Gardens. We looked at Home Depot, we looked at other nurseries, Adams.
Lehigh was the only one that really.
Sabilicos, did you get a quote from Sabilicos?
Sabilicos is outside the town. We try to focus within the
just
town.
within
Okay.
What about Red Barn? They're right on Myers.
It was, the quote that we got from Sunny Gardens was, in my opinion, the better quote for those 5 trees. What the supervisor found with Lehigh was a different quote with different specs, different types of trees in terms of size and diameter, different maintenance. So it's a
Different root ball, all that.
different project than what we had looked at before. But I had actually gone out to Red Barn and looked around their site there, went out to the other
Because they don't have them
facilities.
on site, they have it at a different location.
Okay.
Right.
No,
They
I
have the 6
looked
to
at the
7
trees
foot
there.
trees that are around
No,
2
they
feet,
do have
300
trees
plus
there as
planting.
well. but- all right.
So
What I saw there was
there's nothing there. I was there myself.
larger trees?
Not those trees.
Okay. I saw larger trees there. I apologize. Maybe I was looking at
I
a
was there
different tree.
today, so.
Okay. I was there right around Earth Day, actually, right around Earth Day. So maybe we can go back and forth on trees.
So it sounds like you looked at other nurseries.
Yes, I have. Yes,
So
Councilman.
did I.
And what the supervisors put on the agenda today is a quote from Lehigh. What the councilwoman asked me to look into was a couple different quotes, but I was coming back with Sunny Gardens, so that's up to the board to decide.
So we have a procurement policy here, folks, so that we don't have to spend weeks and months getting pricing for items that cost $700.
It's almost $3,000.
What I'm saying here is, are we going to spend the next 3 weeks looking at getting prices on trees, or are we
No,
going
no,
to
no,
just...
we're just talking right now. It doesn't say we're not going to approve it tonight. I think we need to make an approval tonight. We're
I
here,
think
no more,
it's-
I don't want to waste any more time, but my point is that if we've got other options, we should look at them. It sounds like Joey's done his homework, We're done.
Right, I mean, if we have nurseries in our town, they should be asked. It shouldn't take 3 weeks. It's a simple pick up the phone and ask.
I agree, but again,
Okay,
the whole
so,
purpose of a procurement policy is that if you can go someplace and get something under the amount that is required under the procurement policy, you go there and get it.
right.
You shouldn't have to shop around the entire town interviewing every nursery just to see
Well,
what
what
the
if you can
pricing
get,
is.
what if you can get a better deal?
You gotta
How
look
would
at how
you
much,
know?
what about the time you just spent trying to get all the pricing?
It's picking up a phone, Bill.
Okay, I mean,
I think we should ask every business, if we're looking for something, we should ask them and be transparent and give them all a chance. Then we decide. It doesn't take 3 weeks. It's a simple phone call. Pick up the phone. You can even go online and look. That's all I had asked, is did we ask other businesses that are in our town to give everybody a chance? That's why I asked Joey to look and find out, because the only information I had was Sunny Gardens. And we're not even doing Sunny Gardens. And I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but I think it's a fair thing to do. Not just with trees, with anything that we need.
I disagree.
Okay.
Listen, I think that
I don't have the time
we've
to-
talked about it enough. I think we're,
Okay.
no, I agree, Angela. We looked, we had Joey look. I mean, I don't,
I asked around.
and I don't think that we want to spend any more time on this. I mean, it's less than $3,000. I think it's, if we try to spend more time, we're spending our time and others, and it's costing
No,
us money.
I understand what you're saying. However, when something comes to the board, the information should be there that, yes, I reached out to other areas and this is what we found.
Well, I think that's why he went up there verbally and spoke about it. So
But
I
that's
don't
not what we
disagree.
had, that's not what we had at the initial meeting.
No, I agree.
And I
That's-
think
that's
going
okay.
forward-
You did ask.
Right, so going
that's what we
forward,
did.
No, I
we
agree.
should have that
I agree.
information.
I agree with you. Going forward, absolutely.
Thank you.
So while we're here, we got Resolution 2022-110. Do we just want to make a motion to approve it? Because I'll make the motion now.
So, wait a second, it's 296804, correct?
Right, so I'm going to make a motion for $3,000.
Second.
Joey, how much money do you have left from the tree grant, right? You still have some money that can be applied toward this.
Yes, if the board sees fit, that there's not much money left. There was only a $1,000 grant, but we do have $800 that either could be used to buy other trees
Yeah,
in
or
other
these.
parks or applied toward this project. That's up to the discretion of the board, but
I'm all for applying this against roughly 3,000.
Yeah,
Fine.
I
I
support
don't have a
that.
problem.
okay.
That's fine.
Thank
So I'll
you.
make a motion, I'll amend the motion to make it $22, so it'll get us a total of $3,000, slightly under the $29.68, in case a little bit of overage. Maybe we'll get a little better money on the discount, because you're getting a 4% discount, so maybe it'll help a little bit. But going to make a motion to approve Resolution 110 for $2,200.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes. Thank you. Jim, on the community gardens, you know, I kept trading. I know Bill got some calls from the Colts, but do you have an agreement done?
I don't, and one of the questions with respect to, and I know we had this discussion, and I know the Colbs have, you know, been tied up with other matters, but one of the issues was, as Alex had noted, you know, a community garden requires a lot of information as to how it would be run. You know, and some of the materials that, you know, if there would be boxes and things like that, which we don't have right before us. I know there was a discussion about just, in essence, getting them out there and tilling the land and maybe putting in a cover crop or something so that it would be in place to work on next year. But, you know, so that was, you know, that's where where I think we stand. I don't know, because, you know, we looked at some of the other, Stony Hill has a community garden, and, you know, one of the issues, you know, there, and I was, they have an area for parking, access, you know, so if, you know, with respect to a community garden, I think it's a more of a complicated process, and right now we don't have anything before us with respect to that.
If I could, Supervisor?
Yes, please.
I've spoken with the Kolbs and spoke with them again today. A big part of this right now is that there needs to be communication between the Kolbs and I think the attorney to the town to even draft this revocable license agreement. I understand that we're looking at and basic documents and comparison here, but in terms of site storage, which Mr. Reese mentioned, we walked the site with the Kolbs, and there's 2 sheds on the site near that garden that they can use right now to store some tools and some shovels. I mentioned to the supervisor, potentially using the carriage house to park a tractor in, if there's space. But I think that there needs to be a dialogue, whether we need to schedule a meeting, but we need to move this along because this is already...
The season is going.
Yeah, it's already going to be June by the time that we move this forward.
No, I mean, I guess the one question was, is this just going to be for the Kolbs, or is this going to be for the community?
I think we have to be careful because there are other residents in the town that may have an interest in this, and if we do something, it's to protect anybody that would like to do this and to protect the town.
Where were they going to do it?
The gardens, the
farm.
1 acres.
But I mean, going
It's already
forward, we only want to do this once. We don't want to have to do it a bazillion times.
Yes, when Councilman Beal's motion the last time was to draft a license agreement, 3 years have gone by that no one has been interested. I believe, and again, that's language that has yet to be proposed, whether it's 75% is with the Kolbs and the extra 25% is a
Whatever.
community. But that needs to all be
Jim,
talked about.
I would like
with
you to
the town attorney.
contact or put together, work with the Kolbs or anybody else in the town that would be interested in this, and let's discuss and get something in writing, because this doesn't really have any meat
I mean,
on
the
it.
typical provisions would be an insurance provision.
Right, because we want to protect them or anybody,
So, I mean,
and the
that's-
town.
But as far as, beyond that, originally there was what I thought was a license agreement with the Baisleys to hay that field, but
That was a handshake.
Yeah, that was a handshake
Right.
agreement.
Yeah.
So let me say this real quick, okay? Because we're going to be here till midnight again. I spoke to Courtney Kolb today. She just gave birth. That's why she wasn't here at the last meeting. We all congratulated her over TV, okay? They are interested in starting this as soon as possible. My impression was, what's his name, Brian?
Yes.
Brian was interested in farming the land and then also allowing for others to participate in the process.
Yes.
So in essence, he would be managing this community garden, which as I said at the last meeting or 2 meetings ago, was a no-brainer. We're going to have a third party now that can farm the land and manage other individuals that want to participate in the community farming aspect on that property. That way, it takes the town out of having to manage it, because Steve obviously had concerns about that. Brian was more than willing to head that up and help make it happen, give it a go. So we need to have some definitive direction on this with a timeline. I asked Courtney to contact the supervisor's office today. She did. The supervisor's going to call her back tomorrow. If the town board has no objection, let's get Jim Horan in the mix here, get this thing formalized in whatever, I don't care how it takes shape. As long as the town's protected and they're protected, they're providing a service to this town as far as I'm concerned by farming that land, because it's getting away from us up there. Anyone that's been up there, it's been 3 years of nothing, and it's grown wild. Last time it was utilized was pre-COVID. Think about how long ago that was. So he's willing to take the lead on this, and if we can just get this thing moving, I don't know how realistic it is, but I would certainly hope by the next town board meeting we can approve a resolution that gives them the authority to move forward in this fashion.
I would like to have our lawyer, our attorney, get with whoever and put something together that would protect us all, and have it ready for the next board meeting.
I just have one question, and I just follow up what Councilman Beal said. I just want to make sure we're protected. Does somebody need to have insurance on this, so in case somebody gets hurt, is the town liable, or does he have to have it?
no, I mean, they would,
He would supply
Okay.
the insurance.
Okay, that's what I just want to make sure.
No, the only you know, and if it was a license agreement for just them, then it would be, you know,
Up to them.
it would
I
be
think.
easier with respect to the insurance, you know, et cetera. I think as a community garden where you've got, you know, various people coming and going, it becomes a little bit more complicated because it's not, you know, you've got additional parties, you know, particularly if now we're going to have, you know, additional parties storing equipment on the site.
And that's what Stony Kill has. They have an insurance policy, not them, but the actual individuals using the property.
Well, I mean, yeah, and I believe
Okay.
I believe there's a Stony Hill has a not-for-profit agent.
Yes.
It's
entity,
state property, but yes.
Okay.
you know, so,
Again, I just want to make sure the town's
Yeah.
protected, that's all.
so.
Thank you.
Okay.
So I made a proposal, you guys are,
Yeah,
It's fine.
okay, Jim?
yeah,
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
I mean,
that's fine.
now, I mean, we don't, the board doesn't seek to have, you know, anybody else, you know.
So you don't
solicit.
know if somebody else is going to come through?
No,
People
my
listen?
question is, you know, with respect to this, I don't see a reason necessarily why the board would have to solicit, you know,
We did that over a
proposals from
three-year
various
period
people.
already, and
I mean, it's a relatively, you know,
So I'm all for getting this thing moved on by the
Okay.
12th, so
Yeah,
I
so
agree with
just do
Councilman Beal.
whatever.
So let's get the information back so we
Yeah, I
can
mean,
get the
Do
resolution.
whatever
we
you
have
want.
talked with other potential parties, Joey and I, and nobody was interested, and
Right.
finally the Colbs came up.
Okay.
and-
So do we need to make a motion
Well,
to
who
table this
knows?
one for now?
I know,
Right.
but
I think the town board already provided some direction previously, and now we focused it a little bit more, so I don't know if we need a resolution. I don't think we do. I think
Yeah.
No.
they're going to work with all parties involved and report back. Hopefully, we'll have a piece of
Report back
paper we
next
can
meeting,
approve at the
June
next
13th.
meeting, and
Yes.
So I make a motion, we table this 109, we make sure that we hopefully get this thing completed on the 12th, and let's just move forward. I think
And have our
we'll have all the-
attorney
We'll
work.
have hopefully all the pieces, Jim, so we can
Right.
move forward, because growing season, it's, you know, it's already kind of passed a little bit in the spring already, so we got to move very quickly here. I agree with Councilman Beal.
looking forward to seeing this
No.
one through.
Okay, so there's a motion, and a second?
Second.
Okay, motion second, all in favor? Aye. Aye, any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion to table, you know, passes. Tim Moot's been very patient, and I hate to, you know, based on this agenda, it would be really at the end. So, Tim, why don't you talk about the highway garage, you know, bidding, you know, right now, and then we have two other matters that the councilwoman has
quick.
requested. So,
Sure thing. Thank you. So bids were received May 11th. This is for the 3-bay mechanics edition, including a heavy-duty lift. We received 2 electrical, 2 mechanical, 1 plumbing, and 1 GC bid. The way we bid the project was really 2 projects in one, the base bid being the 3-bay addition. We also looked at renovating the existing facility with different alternates. 1, removing the wall panels and replacing, 2, removing the roof panels and replacing with insulated panels and new roof, and 3, removing all the existing overhead doors and providing new doors and actuators. So the base bid came in at $1,463,685, which is quite much higher than, you know, our estimate. Our estimate was over a year old, but with COVID, we felt the best way to get a true sense of the numbers was to bid it. We also recently bid a project for a similar town. It was a 6-bay garage, and that came in at about $3.2 million. So with respect to the size and scope, the pricing is within range of that, but that was still high too. Normally, I would recommend we need to just basically disqualify the bids and go to rebid. However, we got to keep a few things in perspective. One is the existing lift has been basically rated through this year, and that's done. So that's really a critical component at its end of its expected life. 2 is, if we were to move forward on any of the base bid or any of the alternates, the main component is time, and the building wouldn't be available for about 42 weeks from the approved shop drawing. So if we say, and we look at the process, if we were to award base bid, we get signed contracts, insurance, all that ironed out, say that's another month from now. Then we get the approved shop drawing, which could be 6 weeks from now. I mean, we're clearly looking into a structure this time next year. And that's with the best timetable. With everything going on and with COVID and supply chain, I just wish I could say, let's rebid and things will look better, but as we all see, things are a lot different each month.
And that
so.
garage has been in need of
Oh, my
major
God.
repair for
Yeah.
decades, and I say let's not delay any further.
Agreed.
I agree.
Totally.
So Jim, we need a formal resolution accepting the bid as proposed.
Well, I mean, I guess the big issue is going to be the alternates, what alternates we accept.
So some of the, so if I can just elaborate a little bit. So on some of the alternates, one would make sense over the other, but some you can't pick like alternate 3 because it's the cheapest. It doesn't make sense to do that. So we have to use some logic. At a minimum, I'd say you'd probably want to consider alternate 2, which would be a new roof over the existing structure. Another positive way to look at it is if you were inclined to do so, to accept all of the alternates, at the end of the day, you would have a 3-bay addition and a completely new skin building with roof and doors and walls. So you could say to yourself at the end of the day, for $2,039,385, you have now pretty much a new facility. It still doesn't have the internal modifications that we were talking, for a break room and all that, but you at least have the structure now that you could consider that, other than scrap some of the other items.
So this 2.3 million is equivalent to
It's
all?
2,039,000, so say,
And that's the equivalent to what we talked about from a prior, I'll say, estimate that you did? Because I think we bonded for 1.2 or 1.3 million. So is that the equivalent? So it's about $800,000
other than
more?
the internal renovations, because the other option had some modifications inside for the break room and what have you. So this would really just be your outer skin building and an insulated roof, a shell, so to speak. I mean, a heated, but you
Up
have...
to date.
You have the ability now to maybe consider renovating a bay in there for your...
And you said that was with
can't do
new
that
garage
now.
doors, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
I mean, so the Vector truck can go get
Well,
in
the
there.
Vector truck's designed to fit in the...
I know, but
the-
it could theoretically go into this building.
Well, the whole intent was to put...
I
We
know.
could look at that.
I know.
But the intent was specifically to fit it in the...
When you watch by millimeters, the truck going in and out of the building, it scares you.
If you got to let the air out of the tires to get the truck in the bay, there's a problem.
Well, that's
Yeah,
why
exactly.
Yeah.
it's designed to fit in the addition.
Right.
That's much higher.
I'm not joking.
No,
No, I know
you're
you're not.
right. You're
Bill,
absolutely
if there's a
correct.
frost heave, it doesn't go out the door.
Right. So that's a little too close for comfort, that's all. So
So
progress is what we want here. I think
Let's
he's
say-
presenting a pretty formidable
Correct.
plan here.
do we need to go back and put a resolution on the table to increase the bond from what we previously approved to the new amount?
Or-
Can we do
or
that for
use
June
fund
12th?
balance.
What's that?
Fund balance,
It's a lot.
Right,
borrow.
I think we need to decide the financing. I think it needs to be put on a resolution so that we can, take a look at
And
this.
it was a big bite, and I didn't want to
Yeah.
push it
Yeah,
tonight,
right.
and to the point of
Yeah, I agree.
communicating everything.
If we can have the resolution ready for the
What's
12th, we
the
just got to
bid
figure out how we want to
date?
finance it.
How long is the bid open?
45 days, and the bid opening was May 11th, so if we could make it for the next meeting.
June
That's fine.
June 13th.
Certainly,
yeah.
certainly. And then from a financing perspective, I think we need to, I'm not making a decision on the floor right here.
No.
No.
We have fund balance, yes, we do. We need to get informed information on bond
Right.
rates, where we stand on that. We know rates are going to go up soon, so let's take some time to think about how the best way to finance it is, but this is a good step. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I guess the other question is with respect to the mechanicals and the HVAC and plumbing.
Could that come out of B?
Well, I guess the question is, does the board want to go forward with that, or do you want to defer? I mean, that's the question.
I'm not following.
So I guess we just go all in for everything.
Well, yeah, you'd have to, the electrical,
sense at this
mechanical,
point.
and all
I
plumbing
would-
is all
I
part
would
of
think
base
so.
bid.
Right.
We can't
So
piecemeal
a question,
this has to
Tim,
be
would
done.
be, So this is the left side of the garage facility. We need a break room. Is that something then maybe Steve and you new guys could do over the next winter?
We can discuss it.
Okay, so, but wouldn't it make sense to include those types
Yeah,
of costs?
Yeah, so why don't we-
Financing going forward now?
I mean, we have
finance.
not
I
even a
think
bridge
so.
thing, right? It's-
Yeah,
that's-
we gotta,
So can you incorporate,
I wouldn't
Tim.
sit in there.
no, you're right.
Tim,
And it's been like that too
But if
long.
we're gonna revisit financing.
Tim,
we
can
look
you,
at those
can you
costs as well?
incorporate what it would cost to do the break room too, if we're gonna do it? So let's get the garage and the break room done, we'll bond them both
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
Or whatever we're gonna do,
Just
financing.
do it.
Present some options
Yes.
for change orders that we can look at in
Yep.
addition
That's
to the
another
original
option,
project.
change order.
Because if there are affordable options that we can do right now, let's do them.
Agreed.
So, look at the numbers, crunch them before the meeting. Maybe you can share with us,
Oh, absolutely.
what
That would
we're
be
looking
good.
at.
To your early
We'll
days.
talk with Frederick, Al and I can, we
I
can
mean,
talk on the financing terms and see
Sure.
what
And that's
to
the other
do.
thing too is, with respect to some smaller projects, the supply chain for buildings is a much longer, drawn-out process. And I think that, just the nature of that process kind of discourages people from bidding. So if you're able to do a break room project, which is a lot more manageable from purposes of bidding and estimating and everything else. It's the larger projects right now in this environment that have become problematic.
And anything like big steel, like this structural steel. so
Right.
that's
Those are long lead time items.
That's another problem, yeah.
42
Okay.
weeks. You're killing me, Tim. You're killing me.
Okay.
I wish it was.
So then we'll look at this,
Yeah.
over the next 2 weeks and then have some resolutions, proposals at least, for the board on the June 13th.
But again, this is good work. This is
Oh,
good
yeah.
progress. I mean, getting brick and mortar by, in a reasonable amount of time, I think is now, we can see the light here.
Especially
Finally.
since this has been years in the
Well,
coming.
I mean, it's, not to cast any blame, it's been decades. And what's often happened is we've been in positions where we want to do things and then the bottom falls out of the economy. Right now, we happen to have some funding available, we have some bond options, and I think we might be in a position where we can get something done before
Yes.
things take a downturn if they do.
Exactly.
Right?
I agree.
Yes,
Thank you.
Agree.
Thank you, Tim.
okay,
Thanks.
thanks, Tim.
Have a good night.
Thank you and the team for putting a lot of time into it. So, Councilwoman Bettina, you had wanted to raise the issue with respect to the captioning?
Yes,
First.
everybody has documentation
Yep.
on in front of them. This is something that's been on the radar for a while. I would like the board to look at this, and it would be helpful to our residents when they want to be part of the community and look at all our meetings. Right now, they're not able to do that, and Mike Miner had given us this information, and it looks like the grand total comes out to about $10,385. And I just wanted to get the board's feelings of this, because it would help people with handicaps in many forms.
So is the 300 hours, is that basically what our broadcast for the year is? Do you know?
I don't know, but it could be. It sounds about right,
I had asked Mike Mine, hold on.
because he gave us the sheets with the, thank you, Tim.
Because this wouldn't just be for town board meetings, this is going to have to be for every single thing that's broadcast on our channel.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah,
So
so
that's why
they,
I'd say,
because they can't listen to everything or see everything, especially during COVID,
Yeah.
and it's stressful
No, I
and frustrating.
understand.
No, I know you do,
I
but
believe we have an obligation to accommodate those that need this service. However, my thought initially was that the YouTube channel provided closed captioning.
Right, it's after.
yeah, it's not live.
So it's not in real time, it's only
No.
on the replay?
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So does Minute Track have a built-in captioning option or no?
No.
No, we would need third
party?
So I was at a conference last week, and I've never seen this before, okay? The presenter was doing a PowerPoint, and it was actually doing the closed captioning on the bottom of the screen while he was talking, which tells me that there is technology within, I guess maybe it was Keynote. I don't know if it was Keynote or if it was PowerPoint, but it was actually doing it. It wasn't pre-programmed. It was doing it in real time, which tells me it's included in that particular software. So my thought is, or my question is, why does YouTube not have real-time captioning? Actually, we don't go live on YouTube. That's why.
YouTube has the closed captioning, but residents have to wait to watch the meeting.
Right, because YouTube has to buffer up before it's
Yes.
available. So you're looking for a real-time solution?
Yes,
Okay.
Right.
for them.
No,
For everybody,
I
yeah.
agree. I'm just trying to think if there's,
Yeah.
I get a little hesitant when they say per hour, or, we're charging.
No,
because-
I
Because
agree.
we don't, let's just put it this way, we don't have the shortest town board meetings in Dutchess County. All right?
Excuse me.
I had an email conversation with Mike Miner, and what Mike had said was he would estimate that 12 to 15 hours of programming is produced each month. So, you're looking at,
12 to 15, you said?
yeah.
Per month?
So that's well under the 300-hour threshold.
So we have, 8 hours?
Well, that's nothing. But is it, are we only paying for the original programming, or are we paying for the nonstop?
No, you're just paying, once it's captioned, so you're not paying,
So this is not actively captioning the feed, the audio that's coming through the channel at all times? This
no,
is-
it would just be, my understanding is it's just captioning the meetings.
So it captions the meetings, and it basically takes the captioning and puts it on that reel, and it just stays on that reel.
And they can read it.
Are we sure that's how this runs, though?
I could ask Mike Minor to come in.
Because my impression, I could be wrong, is that this component is going to be captioning whatever source it's receiving for whatever amount of time. So if we have a channel that's running, say we're running 10 hours a day of meetings, that it would be 10 hours times 30 days, right? I don't know, I could be wrong. So-
Should we ask Mike to come in and give us a
According to this, it gives you automatic live and filed captioning, and you basically prepay for usage.
And I think the transcription fee is just one time, right, at the original
Yeah.
recording is what I
That's
understood.
that's assuming that you're gonna capture it
Right.
and then
Right.
Yes,
somehow
repeat it.
how we replay our video,
Yeah.
I don't
I think Mike would have to give us more information.
let's have Mike come in.
Yeah.
Let's have Mike
Yeah,
come in.
that's fine.
There's
don't know.
there's a number of
submit
options
it
that
writing.
are out there,
Or submit a writing.
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
this
So I think he could
this
come
is
in and
really the
quickly give it to
least
us.
expensive of the options
Yeah.
that are out there. One of the options that is out there is, you can have a professional captioner,
Typing the meeting as we go?
typing the meeting as
Yeah,
you
I don't
go.
think we want to
the
do
one,
that.
again, one of the problems with meetings, as in a courtroom, you get crosstalk and things like that. So it's pretty difficult, sometimes it's difficult to caption a meeting, but, it's better than nothing. So, because that's one of the complaints is that a lot of the captioning doesn't necessarily, cover all of the meeting because of crosstalk, and there's no real way
Yes.
to get over crosstalk.
They must record this and send you back a file,
You
because
would
it's
think so,
telling you
but
they're giving you.
we'll
I'm not
ask.
sure.
Let's-
I think,
Yeah,
because
we'll
it's
check.
supposed to be real time. It's
From
not
what
a
I've
recording.
seen, what I've
real
seen
time.
is now Mike raises another issue, and this is a technical issue as to whether or not Cablevision
Or
and/or
Altice.
Verizon has the capability to accept it.
I think Altice does.
Well,
Well, let's check
yeah,
and then.
so that's, because that's the other
Yeah, I
option.
know
discuss it
because
some more.
the
I know
VP
our-
of Altice.
Yeah.
I believe the PEG channels, the public educational and government channels, in the past were not HD channels.
They're not HD.
And so I don't know, So that's the other issue, is you have to investigate the compatibility of this.
Well, Mike should know. We'll
So we'll
ask
have
him.
Well, Mike said he has to find out.
I would argue that,
Roger would know.
I would argue that the cable company should have an obligation to provide this. But then they're going to say no.
But I think having Mike come in, talk to us briefly,
I mean, the
and
other
what
option
he
is to get
knows.
the vendor to come in.
We could do that too, maybe get both of them
Right.
to come in at the next meeting. You
Yeah, we
guys
can
okay
arrange
with
the
that?
vendor. I mean, we can.
As long as,
do
we have
that.
to see if it's going to work though first, you know. Is it
What,
gonna-
dear?
We have to see if it's going to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it's
Yeah.
going to actually.
So we could have Mike come in, give us a presentation,
Yeah.
a quick one, and then we can go from there and see what the recommendations are. The board feel good about that?
Yeah.
From the research that I did, right now, the town does not have an obligation to provide this under the ADA.
Right.
Right.
State
that's true.
agencies and federal agencies by different statutes have obligations to provide it, but right now, we as a municipality do not.
Right, just like levels of government don't have a legal obligation to provide a signer, but I know from doing programs myself,
They do.
we'll say if someone attending
Right.
Right.
needs one, we will accommodate that.
In my years, one time, I believe it came up for hearings on community development block grant
Well, it's federal,
applications.
they got federal money coming in.
Because it's federal money, you have an obligation to put in the public hearing notice that if anybody has, challenge, disabilities, that they need to reach out to the town, and
Right.
we have to make a signer or, whatever accommodations available.
But
that's
this
my-
way, at least, we can
Yeah.
service other people or whoever without identifying who has a disability.
And, it also gives like an indexing option for purposes of, FOIL requests and things like that. You can actually do a search, a text
We'll
search.
do that, yeah.
So,
Thanks,
really?
Jim.
Okay.
yeah.
So we'll have Mike
So
come.
transcript could be created.
Correct.
Interesting.
It's like an MP3 sort of thing.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, move on then. The other one, Jim, was in your court recycle yard?
Yes, so I had, I looked at what we currently have regarding recycle rules. And, it comes around every few years. But right now, based on what we have, first of all, we don't have a local law, it's not codified. My suggestion is that we do codify it. And I provided samples of various municipalities. One of the things that we don't have, which I think we should, is how people should conduct themselves up at the recycle center. Requirements that, they follow the directions and put materials in
Right.
bins as directed. And that if they don't follow it, there's an ability to either fine them or revoke their permits. Right
And if
now-
they get threatening and other
Correct.
issues,
Right,
then...
We've
but
had
what-
those issues over time, but,
Right.
right now, we really don't have a mechanism for that.
Okay.
So-
Right, but I think that would be probably a good thing for a Saturday meeting, a discussion thing, a round table.
Well, I mean,
Something this was to discuss permits for people coming in to the clerk's office.
Yeah.
This was a
Oh, if it
resolution
requires
just for
code
that.
change, then definitely we
Yeah,
plan
Right,
to have
and
one.
then, and to the other point, I mean, one of the things that, was noted, and I did some research regarding, limiting who can use the recycle center. It is permissible for the town to restrict it to just residents of the town. Residents of the village, who reside within the town, not
Right.
residents in the village on the Poughkeepsie side, but they are also permitted to use the recycle center because it is an A-fund expense. One of the things that other municipalities have that we do not have is that, and this is something I think we should impose, would be a restriction that the materials being brought to the recycle center are from the town, not from outside the town.
Right.
We have a provision in our code that says that a landlord who owns property in the town can't bring that, and they reside outside the town, can't bring that stuff to the recycle center. But we don't have the flip side where we have a landlord who owns property in Poughkeepsie and resides in the town. That person, as a resident of the town, could bring material to the recycle center.
Right.
And then...
Let's not give anyone any ideas here, Jim.
And then the last one, which I think is a deficiency that I think was overlooked over the years just because of the nature, is that somebody who does not have a car, who does not drive, right now doesn't have the ability to use the recycle center. Because our permit is based on a vehicle.
So we also have to be careful with this now.
I know.
In 2022, because we don't want to inadvertently create a scenario where folks that don't have a car now cannot use a service in the town, okay? Which, could potentially be some level of demographic discrimination, right? We don't want that. So I think that this is the right approach, though, codifying everything, making sure that we have adequate public input, public hearings for the purposes of the recycle center. There's things out there that we're going to miss that someone may be able to say, hey, what about this, right? And I think that that's going to be the best way to regulate this in a responsible way, right? Here's one for you. I had a situation this weekend where I could have used the recycle center, but I wasn't sure if I could. I rented a U-Haul trailer because I was ordered by my wife to clean out the garage. So I took all the contents of the garage out into the driveway right before the thunderstorm came through, and managed to get half of it into the trailer that was going to go to be disposed of, and the rest is now back in the garage. So she goes, well, why can't you just bring it to the recycle center? And I said, well, I'm not sure if I can, because if I had a permit, I would need on top of the permit a trailer.
Not anymore.
I don't need the trailer permit.
No.
But what about U-Hauls? Are we allowed to bring a U-Haul up there to dispose of? Well, it's not a box truck, it's a U-Haul trailer.
So long as they're not being pulled by a councilman.
So anyway, I had other options, so I didn't want to be that guy up there. They're telling me to turn around and I'm the councilman. So if we can address all these scenarios, right? So someone that has a vehicle that can't hold stuff, but they can get a U-Haul or whatever that is, and it's originating properly, right? That's what we need to look at, that the stuff that's being disposed of is originating properly. Then I think we're going to be more successful with being able to enforce this thing. Because remember, the genesis of this whole thing was to prevent people from dumping things along the town roads, right? That's what this all goes back to. It was an effort to prevent people from dumping their household junk on the side of the road. And it became a free service in this town, and it was expanded greatly over the years, including within this administration. But now the cost to dispose of the stuff has gone through the roof. That's why we require permits to help offset that cost. But the town does still, it is a cost of service to do this. It still costs us money to provide this service. So that said, I think this legislative approach is the right way to do it.
And that's fine, I agree with you on that. However, I think we need a resolution regarding what you sent,
Yeah, so...
regarding permitting people to come to the clerk's office and what is required to get a permit.
I mean, right now, the requirement requires
vague.
a vehicle that's registered to an address in the town, and then a driver's license showing that the person is a resident in the town.
A permanent resident of the town.
Well, permanent resident becomes...
Well, if you're a renter, you're a resident of the town.
Yeah, but if you go and ask for a permit and your permanent resident is in Beacon, so to speak, you don't get a permit.
But what about the points that Chris
Am I
Masterson
correct, though?
established?
No,
Right.
but I mean, I'm still back on that one where a person
No, you're right.
lives...
That's a true point. But Chris Masterson developed this points process where you can provide a Central Hudson bill, a driver's license, and something else, right?
I don't know what
Does
it
that still exist?
Yeah, we still, so for like when we have new residents coming into the town, to make sure that they have proof of residency, let's say like they're coming from New Jersey and they haven't switched over to New York yet. If they have to provide like a central bill, a tax bill, something that provides,
proof
some information that they're living at that residency. then they are able to obtain the recycle center pass, but.
Wouldn't they have a driver's license, though?
Not
Yeah.
necessarily.
But it might be out
Hasn't
of
shown up,
state.
hasn't been
It hasn't
changed.
been changed
So-
yet.
Don't you have 10 business days to change your driver's license?
Yeah, but-
Something that, but yeah, we do actually still use that, so we.
Yes, you have a process, so if we can take your process that works, as long as the town board members agree to that process, and build that into this local law, I think, and we're gonna get input from folks too, because there's gonna be things we're gonna miss here. There's gonna be gray areas that need to be addressed as best as we
There's a
can.
whole list of things for the recycling center. This was just to clarify what was needed to get a permit to use the recycling center. And I think what you put together was very clear for both us and for the residents to use.
Yeah, I mean,
Everything else we can address, which needs to be changed, but this will
The one-
help.
The one thing that's not addressed in what I had said, because that's what the point system for someone who's moving.
Right, right.
You know, I mean, that's, I mean, and that makes sense.
It does.
You know, because you know, when people move, you've got to have some flexibility with
Yes.
respect to.
Giving them time to
Well, because, you
change
know,
things.
and I don't think, I mean, the EMV used to not issue a new driver's license when you change the address. It was just, what was it, a stick? They
I
used
don't
to do
know.
a sticker. I don't
I
even
don't
know if
know.
they do that anymore.
I don't know.
So, I mean, because the licenses now are,
I
is it
don't
2
know.
years or 4 years?
I thought they
So,
were
I
fine.
mean, they don't even, I mean, that's the thing is, right
Right.
now.
Okay, right, so you'll get something without a picture on it, so you don't know, right?
It's just a piece of
The
paper.
temporary.
Yeah, it's a temporary.
So you need other points of verification, I get it.
Right.
But, you know, just, again, use the case, my situation, when we moved into the town, you know, from Taiwan, right? We had New York apartment, and because of the lousy mail system, you know, we had everything sent down to the New York office. We paid all the bills electronically, right? Had no driver's license here at the time, you know, no proof, you know, but we
Right.
were clearly resident
Right,
in the town. So, you know, in that case, we did, you know, and I suggested the gym did do it, you know, for actually a bill, you know, for, it may have been Central Hudson, you know, had to do an affidavit.
Right.
you
Yeah, I
know,
mean, I think an
under
affid-
notary was so
I mean, typically,
backup.
one of the things like, for example, the school district. The school district accepts a deed, and I think there's an affidavit on that form.
Yeah.
So,
So we had a deed, we had all that, and we
Right.
were living there, so,
But if you're a renter, though, that's where it gets
yeah,
all.
I know.
Right,
Well,
so
anyway,
there's a
so we'll,
resolution, do we have a second?
What was the
What's the
resolution?
resolution?
You want to read it?
well, what originally it said was,
I thought, did you send it to the board?
I did.
Okay.
and that's why I raised the affidavit, because I think there needs to be another,
Which is fine.
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't have a problem, I just want to make sure that it's clear for everybody, so nobody has any issues.
Did you guys see this?
I didn't see it.
Okay.
I think as the clerk probably evolves as things get changed, they'll add more things like an affidavit.
Right, we're going to have to
You know,
change as we go forward.
We're
I
moving
mean,
electronically.
So the
So
original,
here's the-
my original proposed resolution was, whereas the town board wishes to clarify the regulations for obtaining a permit for the recycle center, now therefore be it resolved that a permit for the use of the recycle center may only be issued to an individual resident of the town of Wappinger who provides satisfactory proof of such registry, such proof being a valid New York State driver's license issued to said individual having a mailing address in the town of Wappinger that is not a P.O. box. If the driver's, so we could amend, such proof being a valid New York State driver's license issued to said individual having a mailing address in the town of Wappinger,
Deed,
or such other,
legal
Clerk's office.
documentation.
Legal documentation.
Yeah, legal
or such other
documentation.
legal documentation acceptable to the town clerk.
Yeah,
Right,
something like that.
exactly.
It's fine.
I think that clears,
Crystal.
And then if the driver's license has a P.O. box as an address, additional proof of registry,
Right.
such as a current tax bill or utility bill, showing the name individual would be sufficient proof of residency.
So this this resolution is a Band-Aid right now. That's
Right,
what
Yes.
this is.
that's all it is.
That's all it is.
Now, is this in anticipation of an actual local law?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
all right.
Yes.
So I just want to make sure that's clear.
Yes.
This is for right now,
Right.
but we
Yes.
want to take a look at this entire
Yes,
process
Agreed.
and
Exactly.
have a local law speak to it so that we can get input and we can
Yes.
move forward. So I have a P.O. box on my driver's license, all right, in Houstonville, by the way, but that's the way it was.
Right.
I live on Tuscany, but I used to live on New Hamburg Road, so you'd have to provide a further documentation of.
right.
That's what I'm, yeah.
Which I agree with. So I'll support your resolution if you want to move it.
I want to move
Yeah,
it.
okay.
Second.
Motion second.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Jim,
Aye.
thank you very
Aye.
much.
Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion
Thank
passed.
you.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay, so, just because I do have 2 items for executive session, then acknowledgement of the correspondence log. Do I have a resolution?
Second.
Okay, motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passed. Any items for, special consideration, new business that aren't here? I would mention that we have Memorial Day
I was just gonna
service
say
that.
Yeah, Memorial Day.
on next Monday. That starts at 2 o'clock. There is, I guess, a number of pamphlets out there, flyers, and it's going to be held at Brexhall Schlotthaus, Park. And that's rain or shine because we have tents. And so a nice program has been set up by our recreation director.
So one other thing, Steve had gotten an email, finally got a quote on the striping at
Oh, that's right, yes.
Robinson
Yes.
Lane. I don't know if you want to address that quickly?
Yeah, I was going to bring that up.
Yeah, yep.
Sure.
1700.
I have only been able to find one person that's doing this anymore. Several companies that used to do it are no longer in business, so it's kind of a sole provider thing. It's $1,700. I met with the president of the Little League, and we came up with a diagram of what he'd like done, and that's where we're at. It'd be the striping of the new pavement. It would include painting the speed bumps yellow as well.
Oh, good.
Okay. I have a motion?
I'll make a motion. to
Second.
approve it.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstention? Seeing none, motion passed. Any other?
Did you by any chance send that to Cooper to see if, can you please, so he's got it for documentation? Thanks.
Thanks,
Any other?
Steve.
I have one more thing.
Go ahead.
Joey, the Town of Wapner Gateway sign, how's that come along? Thank you very much, appreciate it. Thank you.
Just for the record, Ms. Wagman, I did receive an email from you that went to spam from April 2nd, I think, relative to electric vehicles. You somehow ended up in spam, but your previous emails about Old Troy Road paving were not in spam, so I don't know why that happened, but just want to make sure that
Getting a lot of stuff going to spam.
indicated that I did
I
receive
do,
that,
too.
Yeah.
and I'll write you an email back.
Sure, supervisor.
I'm sitting here searching and searching.
I agree with you, Bill. I'm getting a lot of mail that goes into spam
Yeah, same
for
here.
no reason.
Well, because we increased
It's-
our spam filter here at the town because of all the issues that are going on with
Yeah.
the cyber issues. So I think that might be what happened. We could talk to Craig more about
Yeah.
that, but
Yeah.
I'm seeing other emails in spam too here.
Yeah, I've
I'm
got
looking
them
at.
too.
You have to check your spam files.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Just
Okay,
another
so
file.
I like to have a motion to go in executive session, 2 items that I have. Steve, I think you still have one, but we'll make it quick. One is with respect to union contract negotiations, the other is concerning the case settlement proposal.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, motion passed.